Forward D. In the first two volumes of Reflections on China, opinions have been expressed on and assessments made of the various stands and actions of the Chinese leadership from the beginning of 1962 to December 1977, proceeding from the fundamental principles of Marxism-Leninism which the Party of Labor of Albania consistently applies. These opinions and assessments are based on facts and events of which we have been informed by the Chinese and foreign press, by the Albanian embassy in Peking, and on rare occasions officially by the Chinese leaders themselves, since the Chinese leaders have not informed us even of the most important problems of the situation in China and the activity of their party. The facts at our disposal have been incomplete and inadequate, and we have had to make suppositions from which to draw conclusions and express our opinions on the Chinese policy as well as on the consequences of this policy, which has always been characterized by vacillations and opportunism. Our assessments of the various stands and actions of the Chinese leaders, written in the form of a diary, have been made day to day, at the time they occurred or when we learned of them. The reader should keep this fact in mind in order to properly understand the process by which the Chinese line became known to us, as well as the dialectic of the Marxist-Leninist stands of the Party of Labor of Albania, loyal to the principles of proletarian internationalism. 3. The Party of Labor of Albania has defended the Communist Party of China and the People's Republic of China both when the Khrushchevite, Titoite and other modern revisionists attacked them, and during the Cultural Revolution when the Chinese ultra-revisionists, headed by Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping, posed a serious threat to the CP of China and Mao Zedong. At the same time, our party has followed with concern the anti-Marxist stands and actions taken by the Chinese leaders on many occasions, and to the extent that was realistically possible, has expressed critical opinions about what was going on in China. It has also expressed these opinions at the proper time to the Chinese leadership in the hope that it would put itself on the right course. This hope is reflected in the notes included in these two volumes. Unfortunately, however, revisionism in China grew steadily stronger day by day. At its 7th Congress and at the 2nd and 3rd plenums of the CC, the Party of Labor of Albania made a thorough analysis of the anti-Marxist stand and counter-revolutionary actions of the Chinese revisionist leadership without excluding Mao's responsibility for the situation created. These notes may assist the communists, cadres, and other readers to supplement their knowledge of the course of development of Chinese revisionism and the struggle of the PLA against it. The Otho R. May 1979, 4. Tuesday, April 3, 1962. The revolutionary communists expect China to come out openly against Khrushchevite revisionism. The revolutionary communists and all the communist and workers' parties of the world expect the Communist Party of China to take an open and direct stand condemning Khrushchevite revisionism, which is spreading and causing damage and which has encountered only one open opponent, the Party of Labor of Albania. They are all in solidarity with and support the correct line of our party, admire its courage, but quite correctly expect the Communist Party of China to come out openly. The tactic of the ideological struggle which China is following against the Khrushchevites does not encourage the revolutionary elements, while it gives the waverers the pretext to say, see, China is not moving openly for the sake of unity, we should not move either, for otherwise we would split, and that is not good. And this at a time when the revisionists on their part are acting openly and covertly, attacking, slandering, etc. This is an important problem, but up to now, the Chinese have not had any contact at all with us to discuss these things. Were our enemies to know that between us there is no consultation at all about the fight against the modern revisionists, they would be astonished. They would never believe it. But that is how things stand. 7. Thursday, April 5, 1962. Time is working for us, but time goes very slowly for the Chinese. The tactic followed by the Communist Party of China against Khrushchevite revisionism, in my opinion, is not completely correct. It seems to me that regardless of any consideration, as for instance, China's economic and military potential inferior to that of the Soviet Union, its temporary economic difficulties, the difficult situation created by American imperialism, the eventual accusations that may be made and in fact are being made about Chinese great state chauvinism, or about the Chinese being the splitters of the communist movement, etc. The Communist Party of China must maintain an open militant stand in defense of Marxism-Leninism. When you see that the disease is grave, that the enemies are not only incorrigible but also actively organizing, slandering, attacking, and fighting, it is neither revolutionary nor right to keep silent for the alleged purpose of preserving the rotten unity of the communist movement or the socialist camp. Khrushchev cannot mend his ways any more than Tito. Where Tito went, Khrushchev will go, or has already gone. You call Tito traitor, and for tactical reasons you call Khrushchev comrade. Time is working for us, but we must help it flow in a revolutionary way. It seems to me that for the Chinese time goes very slowly. 8. Friday, April 6, 1962. The Chinese are giving Khrushchev a hand. The Chinese ambassador came to transmit to me a message from the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China to the Central Committee of the Party of Labor of Albania, which, in substance says, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China is of the opinion that a meeting should be held with the Soviets on the basis of the proposals of the parties of Indonesia, Vietnam, and New Zealand, in order to iron out differences and strengthen the unity of the socialist camp. We must take the initiative, say the Chinese comrades, and uphold the banner of unity. They add that the conditions we have laid down for this meeting are understandable to the Chinese, but will not be accepted by the other parties. Therefore, for its part, the Communist Party of China lays down no preconditions. It proposes that we exchange party delegations to discuss the issue. We shall reply to them. We accept the exchange of delegations with the Communist Party of China, but we will not alter our stand in the least in regard to the proposed meeting with the Soviet revisionists. This is a wrong course the Chinese comrades are trying to lead us onto. It is an opportunist road of vacillations and concessions to the Khrushchev traitor group which finds itself in grave difficulties, and is intriguing in order to escape defeat. The Chinese comrades are giving it a hand to pull it out of the mire, giving it the possibility to strengthen its positions and go on the attack again. 9. Tuesday, April 10, 1962. Why all these waverings towards the Soviet revisionists? Apparently the talk I had on April 6 with the ambassador Lo Shigao has obliged the Chinese comrades to hand our ambassador copies of the letters exchanged between the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and the Communist Party of China. The content of these letters is new to us because the Chinese comrades said not a word about this correspondence in the message they handed us. My talk caused the revelation of this correspondence which it seems the Chinese comrades did not intend to disclose to us. This is the beginning of an incorrect stand towards us, since we are referred to in these letters. It would have been considered correct for the Communist Party of China, before replying to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, to have informed us about the content of the letter it would send to that party, and possibly to have sought our opinion too, since we were referred to. Then whether or not our opinion was taken into consideration is another question. As it turns out, without our knowledge, the Chinese comrades long ago commenced negotiations with the Soviet revisionists about meetings and conferences with them, and gave their definite approval. Now the talks they want to hold with us are intended to convince us that we, 10, agree to withdraw the conditions we have laid down and meet the Khrushchevites. If we do not withdraw our preconditions, then the Chinese comrades will escape all responsibility, will have the argument to exonerate themselves before Nikita, telling him that the accusation of inciting the Albanians leveled against them is untrue and that, on the contrary, they had interceded with the Albanians, advised them, but they did not listen. After this victory, Khrushchev will make the proposal. We should meet without the Albanians and settle our affairs. If the Chinese comrades accept this too, then they will take even more difficult roads, will fall into the trap laid by Nikita Khrushchev, who wants at all costs to isolate the Party of Labor of Albania. The copies of the letters that we shall receive will make the stand of the Chinese comrades completely clear to us. But even now, on the facts we have, one thing is clear to us. Very likely they may have fallen into the trap laid for them, as they have kept the correspondence between the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union and the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China hidden from us. And here they have made a grave mistake. This is clear to us even without knowing the content of the Chinese reply. As for the Soviet letter, we can imagine what it contains. 11. Thursday, April 12, 1962. The Chinese comrades criticize the Soviet revisionists. We received the summary of the letter of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China in reply to the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. The matter does not seem to be completely as we envisaged it. We turned out to be wrong in our judgment of the eventual reply of the Chinese comrades. It is obvious that the Chinese comrades are reflecting and have maintained a correct stand both on our question and on their question, as well as on other general problems. In their letter, they put the blame on the Soviets, make them responsible, and demand that the Soviets take the initiative for the improvement of their relations with us. What is important is that the Chinese comrades tell the Soviets that their attempt to isolate Albania from China and the international communist movement is in vain and unacceptable. The stand of the Chinese comrades towards our opponents is good. Nevertheless, in the message they sent us, the tendency to seek a certain softening on our part is evident. Be this as it may, seen from the angle of the Chinese tactic, the reply to the Soviets is good, correct. We must not pass premature judgment on the stands of the Chinese comrades without first being acquainted with their official documents. 12. Friday, April 13, 1962. A disguised Soviet attack against China over Albania Izvestia came out today with an article on the unity of the socialist camp. We are attacked in it as splitters, anti-Leninists, dogmatists, etc. These are the usual slanders, but the new thing which clearly emerges is that this article is not aimed at us, but at the Chinese. This article is a public reply to the letter of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China of April 7, which was addressed to the Communist Party of the Soviet Union in connection with eventual talks, etc. This article is a fierce attack, although still disguised, on the correct stand of China which rightly defends us. This is the beginning. Izvestia is telling China, you must leave Albania in the lurch, otherwise you, China, are against unity. Now the Chinese will not entertain illusions, but will become even stronger. 13. Saturday, April 14, 1962. Woe betide those who fall into the revisionists' trap. Yesterday's article in Izvestia was written more against China than against us. We are the pretext. But this article on unity is nothing other than the official reply to the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China in regard to negotiations over talks. With this article, the Soviet revisionists are pursuing several objectives. 1. To accuse us as splitters, dogmatists, etc. But these banal repetitions do nothing but expose the real authors of the split, the Soviets themselves. 2. To reject the platform of the Chinese for talks, telling them, we, the Soviets, will not come to the talks on your platform. We do not, nor will we recognize that we are guilty of any fault towards the Albanians. On the contrary, we are on the Marxist-Leninist road. While the Albanians and you are on the anti-Leninist road, we shall take no step towards the improvement of our relations with the Albanians. The Albanians must be abandoned so that they do not become an obstacle to the Chinese submission to us, the Soviets. The Chinese road is the road of division. There is only one road. This is our road. Take it or leave it. If you do not accept it, then the struggle will begin even openly. 3. To play their last card in order to intimidate China. 14. Or make it waver from its correct positions. But we can describe these threats as the farts of an ass, which only make the air stink but frighten nobody. They merely show the fear Khrushchev and his men have in their bellies. To hint to the Americans and the Belgrade group that no agreement can be reached with Albania and China, therefore they should not worry. But in return, the Soviets, tell them, make us some concession, because we have been exposed, and this is not good either for you or for us, or for our common plan, the destruction of socialism. 5. To give a clear-cut directive for Khrushchev satellites, wherever they are, whether in power or not. For them, this article has two aims. A. To consolidate the positions of the betrayers of Leninism around Khrushchev. To the satellites, who have been informed of the content of the letters of the Communist Party of China, the article says, this will be our stand towards the Communist Party of China. So you too must publish in your press what Izvestia has published. Publicize this article, compromise yourselves. B. To threaten the satellites if they move. Khrushchev tells them, I'll do to you what I did to the Albanians and the Chinese, and then you will be placed under fire from three directions. My fire, the Chinese Albanian fire, and the Interna fire. I'll stop your rations, so don't do anything silly. This is the diabolical work of the revisionists. Woe betide those who get caught up in it. 6. To tell the parties that take a principled stand. Turn back, do not link yourselves with China, or you'll have cause to regret it. To cover up the defeat they have suffered in the international and internal arena. To divert the attention of the public from the crimes they have committed against the good cadres within the country, etc. But 15. The public asks, can this little socialist Albania that is being attacked in this manner by Khrushchev really be so dangerous? It is becoming clear to public opinion day by day that it is dangerous not because of its military potential, but because of its ideological potential. 16. Sunday, April 22, 1962. To cease the ideopolitical struggle means to allow the enemy to harm you. The campaign initiated by the Khrushchevites for the cessation of the polemics in the press and radio is spreading. It must be clearly understood who was the first to start the public polemics. It was the group around Khrushchev. Two lines, two stands on theoretical and international questions emerged. One opportunist revisionist line which deviated from Marxism-Leninism, violated the Moscow Statement. Supported Taoism and sought to extinguish the struggle against it, opened the way to concessions to imperialism, toned down the struggle against it, flattered it, etc. This was the line of the Khrushchevites. Ours was the other line which remained faithful to Marxism-Leninism and the statements of the Moscow meetings. Short though it was time proved the correctness of our line, the revisionists failed in every attempt. They exposed themselves badly, scored no success, were shaken. They are seeking a way out of their difficulties, want a breathing space to prepare weapons and recommence the offensive on the same terrain, with the same arguments. They also need time to come to agreement with the imperialists. That is why they are seeking unity. But what sort of unity are they talking about? The unity which existed. 17. Before and they themselves destroyed, or unity which is a sort of modus vivendi. They are for the latter. The Soviet revisionists, like the Yugoslav and the other revisionists, do not alter their course. Every attempt they make under the pretext of unity is a fraud. According to them, unity means submit to our views, the only Leninist views. The aim of their blandishments in this direction is to compromise you, to force you into submission, then to attack you even more fiercely than they have done and are still doing. For Khrushchev, to cease the ideological and political struggle means, leave me in peace to continue on the course I have set out and which I shall not change. This maneuver is clear to the Party of Labor of Albania. It seems to be clear also to the Communist Party of China, but it does not seem to be as clear as it should be to the Vietnam Workers' Party, the Korean Workers' Party, the Communist Party of Indonesia, the Communist Party of New Zealand, etc. The sentimental desire for unity's sake prevails in these parties. Officially, the Communist Party of China seems to be in agreement with the thesis of unity. In principle, we too are for unity, but always unity on the Marxist road. The Communist Party of China seems to have great hopes in the success of this thesis, whereas we have no hope at all as long as we do not see concretely that the Khrushchevites publicly recognize their mistakes. They are not doing this and will not do so. For the time being, we shall keep quiet. This is to Khrushchev's advantage, but we shall deliberately employ this tactic temporarily in order, you might say, to please the Chinese and other comrades who will soon be more thoroughly convinced that this plan of Khrushchev's too was a hoax. This tactic will not last long. This Khrushchevite maneuver will be exposed by Khrushchev himself, and we shall help him expose it. 18. Wednesday, June 13, 1962. China is proceeding on a centrist course. After a long odyssey, after crossing many seas, comrades Hisni and Ramiz reach China these days. They have begun talks with the Chinese comrades and have sent us several radiograms in which they keep us informed about the views of the comrades and peeking on the problems that are worrying us. First, the Chinese comrades express solidarity with our views in connection with international questions and the revisionist group of Khrushchev and his followers. They described their stance as correct and said that we Albanians had our hands free to fight the Khrushchevites because they attacked us first. They declared that they would not go to the meeting without us, that they would not go to any surprise meeting which Khrushchev might prepare in his usual way. They also told us that they had received a reply from the Communist Party of the Soviet Union in a letter of 50 pages, of which 40 were against us. After they received this letter, the Chinese comrades published parts from my speech in the electoral campaign, of course, with some delay. Now all the efforts of the Chinese comrades are centered on the question of convincing us of lifting the preconditions we have laid down for a meeting and take part in the one which, of course, the Soviets and the Chinese are to prepare. The reasons they give for their insistence. 19. Are baseless, weak, and with a pronounced opportunist spirit. The Chinese comrades seem hesitant about and afraid of the struggle against the revisionists, overestimate the strength of the enemy and underestimate our strength and that of international communism. They are trying to reach some sort of compromise. Our firm stand is hindering them, so they are beating about the bush. The Soviets are afraid of us and can never agree to a meeting with our participation. They are working hard to expel us from the international communist movement. They are working in this direction against China too, but by means of demagogy, blackmail, intimidation, etc. In this situation, China is taking a centrist course, hesitating. We are not budging a hair's breadth from our correct positions of principle. The comrades have been and are clear about this. I have sent the comrades some telegrams about the situation. Let us see what the Chinese will do. If they do not change their stand on this important tactical issue, then we shall not reach agreement on anything. They ought to reflect. 20. Sunday, June 24, 1962. Time will tell whether we are right. The Chinese have declared a state of war in Fujian province and announced in a communique that the Chiang Kai-shek forces, assisted by the Americans, would attack China about July. They also communicated this to our ambassador at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China. They have taken measures to cope with this attack. The communique is not alarming. The Chinese may have, and they certainly have facts about this, and it is natural that they should make the matter public and warn the population. The Americans are capable of embarking on this venture in order to create a tense situation in the Taiwan Straits. If they land and establish themselves, then they gain a foothold from which to create further complications. If they fail, and they will certainly fail, the Americans lose nothing, because this is what they are feeding Chiang Kai-shek and his men for. However, in the existing situation and facing a complete and resounding failure of this venture, our opinion is that the Americans will not involve themselves in it. On the one hand, I think that with this the Americans want to test the determination of China and find out the extent of the differences between China and the Soviet Union. On the other hand, we must suppose that all this may be only an imperialist revisionist maneuver to boost the fallen prestige of Khrushchev, who will seize this war. 21. Opportunity to proclaim that he will defend China and other such boastful nonsense in his usual style and to force it, China, to publish Nikita's bluffs in its press. That is to compel China to call the pig her uncle and willy-nilly to tone down the differences and go crestfallen to meetings and conferences with the Soviets. Looking at the question from this angle, I think China made a tactical blunder when it made a public statement about this so-called attack. It should have continued its preparations and liquidated the Chiang Kai-shek forces if they landed on the mainland. Time will tell whether we are right. 22. Monday, July 2, 1962. The Chinese are moving towards conciliation with the Khrushchevites. Speaking on television about his trip to Romania, the revisionist Khrushchev raised the Chinese question and declared, if China is attacked, then the Soviet Union will defend China, etc. He would have been stupid not to exploit this opportunity to use this despicable demagogy at a time when the Soviet divisions are moving towards China on the Xinjiang border. And the Soviet consulate there is preparing and organizing people against the state power in China and has caused nearly 60,000 Chinese to flee the Soviet Union. Now the Chinese willy-nilly will publicize this declaration through the press, but it seems as if they are eager for such a pretext. They are moving towards conciliation, as if this is what they want. Perhaps we are doing them an injustice, but this is a victory, a temporary one, but nevertheless a victory for the revisionist Khrushchev. This harms us. For the time being, we are obliged to keep quiet about him, and the enemy will take advantage of this in order to act. But we are unmoved. Everything will be explained in our favor of Marxism-Leninism. 23. Tuesday, July 3, 1962. We shall press on. We shall never surrender. The process of the unification of modern revisionism and the Tito-Khrushchev complete accord are developing at a headlong gallop. Nothing is holding it back. The international communist movement is silent, utterly silent. Innumerable delegations are being exchanged between Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union. The Yugoslavs and the Soviets declare publicly that their ideological differences are quite insignificant and are being eliminated. With loud publicity, the Soviet Union is preparing to accord Yugoslavia credits. Brezhnev is to go to Yugoslavia, etc. Everything we have foreseen and predicted is being confirmed to the letter. Revisionism is on the up and up. We are in the minority, but we shall press on. We shall never surrender. Right is on our side. Marxism, Leninism is on our side, and we shall triumph. Certainly we shall triumph. Ours is a difficult, unequal fight, but just and glorious. 24. Wednesday, July 4th, 1962. This smells of economic pressure. We must guard against provocations. Comrades Hisny and Ramiz have ended their work in China and are in Burma. They arrived in Rome on the 6th. On the majority of questions, they were in agreement with the Chinese comrades, except over participation in the eventual meeting of the communist and workers' parties of the world. We maintained our position, the Chinese theirs. At the meeting he had with our comrades, Zhu Enlai told them that it would be difficult for China to supply us with all the things on which agreements have been signed. Our comrades opposed this because it smelled of economic pressure. This is serious. However, we must await our comrades' return to judge it better. Mao gave them a very fine welcome, had good words for them. He knew nothing about what Chu had said and promised that he would talk with his comrades. We must be very cautious. We must be cool-headed and prudent, because the enemy is working intensively to divide us from China, trying to isolate us. We must guard against provocations, must measure our steps well, must not make any concession over principles, and safeguard our friendship and links with China, because this has great importance for us and for international communism. 25. Thursday, July 5th, 1962. The Chinese comrades are not drawing the proper conclusions from events in the world. Khrushchev's declaration about China will be used by the modern revisionists to build up the credit of their leader, by presenting this traitor as a Marxist who makes no concessions to the imperialists, and who, regardless of the contradictions which he has with China when the need arises, will hurl himself into the flames on its behalf. Of course, this is all bluff which will be short-lived, but for a time it will fool many people. In order to diminish the bad effect which this declaration of his might have had among the Americans, Khrushchev the lackey yesterday attended a celebration at the American embassy in Moscow, even at a time when the ambassador was absent. The President of the United States of America has never attended a celebration at the Soviet embassy in Washington. This dirty scoundrel Khrushchev goes there every year. The declaration which he made will serve him as a trump card at the Peace Congress, and he will also use it against us if we attack him openly, accusing us of allegedly joining the imperialist chorus against him, when he is defending our friend China. But we are not falling into this provocative trap. With this declaration, Khrushchev will try to soften. 26. Up China to lead it into a trap, to smooth over the contradictions in his favor. We shall see what China will do. Will it see this trap which to a certain degree it has set for itself? China failed to take into account the movement of missiles in aid of Cuba. When Cuba was attacked at the Giron Beach, Khrushchev's missiles did not move, but later Escalante, the Khrushchevite missile, moved. Interesting, the Chinese comrades are not drawing the proper conclusions from events in the world. The Chinese denunciation of an eventual American Chiang Kai-shek attack on China seems to say, Khrushchev, we are holding out a hand, grab it. Both you and I have a sound reason, I, the Chinese, to move towards conciliation, and you, Khrushchev, towards rehabilitation, at least temporarily. We will see how the situation develops further, how the Chinese proceed. Today, Hisny and Ramiz should leave Rangoon for Rome by plane. They will make many things clear to us. 1A Escalante, former organizational secretary of the Committee of United Revolutionary Organizations of Cuba. 27. Tuesday, July 10th, 1962. Pronounced tendencies to softening, fear, and passivity are appearing in the Chinese line. Comrade Hisny reported to us on the talks which were held in Peking. The Chinese comrades welcomed our comrades very warmly and had many good words to say about our party and our people. The main thing which comes out of the talks is that on the questions of principled importance concerning political and ideological problems, the Chinese leadership has views identical with our party. The views expressed about and assessments made of modern revisionism, the Tito-White group, the Khrushchev group, and the zealous followers of these groups were also identical with ours. The great danger of these revisionist groups and of modern revisionism in general is assessed in the same way. The necessity of the struggle against them was stressed with force both by our comrades and from the Chinese side. This has great importance. However, on the tactics of the struggle against revisionists as they express themselves, there are some differences. In the Chinese line, there are pronounced tendencies to softening, fear, and passivity. Briefly, the Chinese comrades explain this on the grounds that the Khrushchev group is strong economically and militarily and is relying on the prestige of the Soviet Union and the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. 28. This group is in power. The same situation exists in the other communist and workers' parties. Work must be done in such a way as to create revolutionary nuclei in these parties and bring about a break, though in many of them the division has taken place. Therefore, according to the Chinese, allegedly we should accept even a formal unity and uphold this banner and create an anti-imperialist front even with the revisionists. On the question of the meeting, the Chinese comrades vacillated but leaned towards attending. They tried to convince us that we too should go to the meeting in order to struggle, etc. In a word, there are differences in our tactics, but we shall not shift from the positions we have taken, which in our circumstances and the international circumstances are correct and revolutionary. The Chinese comrades recognized this and made no criticism of our stand. Hence, time will prove who is right, but it is important that we are in agreement on the main questions. The enemies are trying to isolate us from China. We must avoid this trap, must proceed prudently and cautiously with the Communist Party of China, must strengthen our links and collaboration with it, because the Communist Party of China stands in a correct principled position and is her friend that supports and helps us. The importance of the Communist Party of China for international communism is colossal. We must take account of these especially important considerations in our work, and we shall do so without violating any principles or making concessions. I believe that the Chinese comrades will reflect more deeply on our stand, and we too must carefully study the facts about and assessments of the Communist Party of China. It is too soon to consider this question settled. We shall return to these capital problems many times. 29. Wednesday, December 5th, 1962. Pajetta launched a harsh attack on the Communist Party of China. The speech of the Chinese delegate at the Congress of the Italian Communist Party was a good hard-hitting one. He put forward the correct Marxist-Leninist line of the Communist Party of China on theoretical and political questions, as well as on the problem of Cuba. Defended us, raised the problem of the Sino-Indian border, sternly denounced Tito-White Yugoslavia as well. Replied to Togliatti's speech, which he condemned, and showed that the Communist Party of China was not in agreement with the leadership of the Communist Party of Italy over many things. However, in his speech, the Chinese delegate sought the holding of talks between their two parties. This is the affair of the Chinese. These talks will not yield even the smallest fruit. It is work in vain. Pajetta, this individual sold out to the Italian bourgeoisie, launched an open filthy attack in a provocative way on the Communist Party of China in particular. Now everything is clear to the Chinese comrades. They can see more clearly with whom they have to do, see the correctness of our party's judgment about these people. 1 Giancarlo Pajetta, member of the leadership of the Italian revisionist. CP 30, Tuesday, December 11th, 1962. The fight against traitors must be waged openly, sternly, and without compromise. Over principles. It is clear to us that Khrushchev and his minions, who have just held the congresses of their parties, have organized a new attack on the Party of Labor of Albania and especially on the Communist Party of China. The attack on the latter was open and launched with hooligan methods. These congresses were intended to raise the prestige of the Khrushchev group, which is at rock bottom, and at the same time, to slander our parties in order to discredit our correct stands which expose their treacherous activities. These attacks also have the objective of intimidating the Communist Party of China over a split, which in fact they have consummated, of isolating it from the Party of Labor of Albania, that is through trickery, blackmail and intimidation, of trying to lead the Communist Party of China up their blind alley. They are doing all these things in order to get a hold on China and then to put the boot in after they have thrown it to the ground. The Communist Party of China will not fall into their trap because it knows with whom it is dealing. In principle, the talks which the Communist Party of China proposed to hold with the Italian Communist Party, and the suggestions that it made at the Congress of the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia for a general meeting appear not. 31. To be wrong in principle, but bearing in mind with whom we are dealing, these talks are not only sterile, but are also harmful, because they, the revisionists, are completely on the course of open treachery, organizers of secret and open plots against Marxism-Leninism. These people are not altering their course, but want to gain time to develop their treachery further. To this end, they are trying to draw whomever they can and as many as they can onto their course. Therefore, our party will agree to nothing and will not be deceived by traitors allegedly for the purpose of observing the forms which have also been violated by the traitors. The struggle against them must be waged openly, sternly, and without compromise over principles. 32. Thursday, December 20th, 1962. China is not acting well in failing to reply to Khrushchev's attacks. With Tito's visit to Moscow, any struggle against the Tito-White clique, even just for the sake of appearances, came to an end. We can say that he scored a great success. He trampled on Nikita Khrushchev and especially his revisionist friends all over Europe. Tito made them all eat their own words and sing hymns in his praise. Now all the revisionists are rushing to make up for the lost time. The American agency now has its hands free because the Khrushchevites have opened all doors to it. The Titoites have become omnipotent and will know how to work and to activize themselves for the degeneration of all those parties and countries which opened the doors to them. Khrushchev and Tito are pleased with their talks. Of course, the latter had a series of concrete proposals in his pocket from Kennedy, the head of American imperialism, which he put before Khrushchev, and no doubt, the two arrived at satisfactory conclusions. Tito will present these to Kennedy for final approval. Undoubtedly, we shall soon see the concrete results of these talks and new retreats and scandalous compromises. Up till now, China has made no reply to Khrushchev's attacks and, in my opinion, it is not acting well. The modern revisionists have gone over to a new phase of their 33. Struggle against Marxism-Leninism. In the first phase, violating the Moscow statement, they attacked us, and Khrushchev, with disgraceful methods, managed to compromise a series of party leaders, and to involve them in their propaganda in this dirty struggle against the Party of Labor of Albania and Marxism-Leninism. We resisted the attacks, exposed them, and our struggle had success. Now the revisionists are going further down their road of betrayal and want no hobbles on their feet. Hence, facing defeats, they are trying to bring about the polarization of revisionists, moving towards new compromises with imperialism, continuing the struggle against us with the same methods. But this time they are openly attacking the Communist Party of China from the congresses of other parties. This was done at the congresses which have been held in Italy, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Bulgaria. This activity was capped with the speech that Khrushchev delivered on the 12th of this month in the Supreme Soviet of the SU, and it will continue with two objectives: either to intimidate China, force it to its knees, or cause it to go on the offensive and achieve the split, because now the unity is formal. China is seeking a meeting. This is of no advantage to the revisionists, but if they come around to it in the end, not in the interest of unity, but of a split. First, they will continue to attack China roundly in order to discredit it, to deeply compromise the leaders in the communist and workers' parties in this new open campaign against China, and then, when they have prepared it, they may accept the meeting, to put China with its back to the wall and say, either surrender or get out. You are to blame. China has to understand these plots and must not fall for them. 34, Sunday, December 23, 1962. We have differences over tactics with the Chinese comrades, and this we have not hidden from them. At a dinner which the Chinese comrades put on in Peking for a group of our building specialists, amongst other things. In his speech, Li Xiannian repeated that we would be quite unable to build the new projects which we received from China and bring them into production at the time decided. Speaking about modern revisionism, he said that there were contradictions between the Party of Labor of Albania and the Communist Party of China without specifying them, but they were in agreement on the general line. What he said about the construction of the new projects is not true, because he has no facts at all, since the work is not even begun. He could have said that the Chinese are not delivering the blueprints on time. This is what is hindering and delaying the construction of the projects, and it is Li Xiannian who is insisting on and spreading his baseless idea also, among the other comrades of the Chinese leadership, that we are allegedly incapable of building the new projects. For our part, we will mobilize ourselves and prove the opposite. As for the contradictions, it would be more correct for him to say that we have differences over tactics, and they know of these, which we have not hidden from them. We cannot blindly follow the Communist Party of China in the forms and tempo of their actions. 35, Monday, December 24, 1962. The stands of the Chinese comrades are improper in several directions. I think that the stands of the Chinese comrades on the questions which are concerning us are improper in several directions. Regardless of this, we have assumed all the responsibilities. We are on the right road, and sooner or later everyone will understand this road and will follow it. All the modern revisionists without exception have organized the great orchestra against the Party of Labor of Albania in order to discredit it in the eyes of the whole world. Even what pertains to China, they hurl at us. Their aim is to attack their main enemy, the Party of Labor of Albania, and at the same time, to intimidate and discredit the Communist Party of China, and to reach the point where it is no longer in solidarity with us, which means to descend to compromise with them. At a time when the revisionists are acting openly in all directions, the Chinese comrades, although they agree that the revisionists are traitors and that their own relations with the Soviet Union are hanging on a thread, are avoiding the struggle for purely formal reasons, regardless of the fact that patience too has a limit. They are holding back to our detriment, to their own detriment, and to the detriment of communism. The Chinese comrades do not understand the 36 consequences of the revisionists' maneuver. They are attacking us and openly spreading propaganda that allegedly the Chinese are behind us, that allegedly we are the Chinese loudspeaker and sold out to the Chinese. This propaganda of theirs means that they are attacking China. China is seeking a meeting, and the worst of it is in order to strengthen unity. But it is a puzzle what sort of unity they are thinking about. If unity can be achieved on correct principles, we too are in favor of this. But one or the other side must admit that it has been wrong in principle, otherwise unprincipled compromises are made. This we do not accept. It seems to me that the Chinese comrades have put great hopes on the meeting and are remaining loyal to this formality, because the way things have gone so far, it cannot be called anything else, up to the point of accepting that they and their allies should be insulted and discredited. I am convinced that this method of action, this tactic, is neither militant nor revolutionary. 37, Wednesday, December 26, 1962. Li Xiannian said the opposite of what he had said earlier about the contradictions between us. At a dinner, Chen Yi corrected what Li Xiannian had said about the contradictions allegedly existing between our parties. He began his speech with the expression, between our parties there is no disagreement, no division, but complete, seal, unity, etc. This means that Li Xiannian was wrong, or that his comrades do not agree with him. The fact is that at a later dinner, Li Xiannian said the opposite of what he had said earlier about the contradictions between us. This time he had his speech written out. 38, Thursday, December 27, 1962. Dead silence in Chinese foreign policy. Dead silence in Chinese foreign policy. Khrushchev, Tito, Kennedy are striking underhand deals, and we shall see what emerges from them. The Chinese are keeping quiet, and it seems they have decided not to reply to Khrushchev. The Chinese are making efforts, through the communist and workers' parties which take a vacillating centrist stand, to bring about the calling of a meeting of the communist and workers' parties of the world. These allies will dump you in the middle of the road whenever it suits them, therefore meetings of compromise. Khrushchev is able to hold such a meeting whenever he likes, and these allies will always be on his side. But what he wants most is the liquidation of the Party of Labor of Albania, and the submission of the Communist Party of China. Khrushchev is fighting to create the conditions in this direction, while China is holding back, dragging its feet, you might say, on this issue. 39, Thursday, July 4, 1963. Another stale communique. China again reaffirms that the delegation which goes to Moscow for talks will show patience, etc. Etc. China again issued a communique in connection with this meeting. A stale communique which to my mind was unnecessary. And what for? The communist world is becoming convinced, and will become even more convinced about Khrushchev's betrayal. Will expose him and tear the mask from this traitor. Someone like is advising patience. The Chinese are talking about patience too, but I believe that they are thinking differently. Because it would be astonishing if after all these things which the revisionists are saying and doing, they have not become fed up with them. 43rd, Friday, July 5, 1963. A meeting which will not yield any result. The delegation of the Communist Party of China, headed by Tang Xiaoping, has arrived in Moscow. It was given a pompous farewell in Peking as if it were going to a wedding, while in Moscow it had an icy reception like a funeral. We shall see what this worthless formal meeting will yield. I am sure that it will not yield any result. On the contrary, it will show how right we were to dot the i's. What result can be achieved in talks with the Khrushchevite traitors when they have affirmed at the plenum of their central committee that they will not retreat even a fraction from their line? With this, the Khrushchevites want to say, step back, you Chinese, and come and join our dance. Go and talk patiently if you wish with the Khrushchevites under these conditions. 44, Thursday, July 11, 1963. Today the Chinese are saying about Khrushchev what Khrushchev said yesterday about Tito. Chen Yi talked to our ambassador in Peking, Raised Malal, and in substance told him that the Moscow meeting might be broken off to be continued later in successive sittings. Such a thing, stressed Chen Yi, is in the interest of both sides. After venting his spleen on Khrushchev, he said, we must try to prevent him from going over to the imperialists, to prevent him from capitulating, because there is the question of the Soviet people, etc. etc. We shall go on exposing him all the time, etc. He said in conclusion. Vacillations can be seen among the Chinese comrades. They are up one minute and down the next, and leave the impression that they are not clear on their tactics, but very wobbly, and are often intimidated by the pressure of the Soviets who are arrogant. The Chinese are saying about Khrushchev today what Khrushchev said about Tito yesterday. He is an enemy, a Trojan horse, but we must not let him go over to the enemy, must not let him capitulate, because there is the question of the peoples of Yugoslavia, etc. And in the end they kissed and made up with Tito. They became friends, allies, and comrades opposed to us. Too bad about the Chinese. 45th, Friday, July 12, 1963. The Chinese do not fully realize what an enemy Khrushchev is. The Chinese still do not fully realize what an enemy Khrushchev is, although the course of this traitor is already clear. He is heading towards agreement with the American imperialists, towards concessions and compromises. Hence we are not dealing with a person or a group that is making some mistakes, that in the middle of the road sees the disaster looming up ahead and turns back. In this case it would be essential to maneuver without giving way on principles, to prevent him from going over to the imperialists. But with Khrushchev it is not at all in order, or correct, even to consider, let alone do such a thing. He has betrayed completely. 46, Saturday, July 13, 1963. The middle of the rotors lean mostly to the right. The Chinese comrades are temporizing in vain. The extreme zigzags which they think have their pluses have also many minuses. The middle of the rotors, as the Chinese describe those parties which say they are against Khrushchev, but which don't come out openly either against him or for us, cannot be one of these stands. They are for a policy of real in, but don't break the line, don't make matters worse, wait and see. They are leaning mostly to the right. Therefore such a thing is favorable to Khrushchev and his gang. But I am convinced that the traitor can't be stopped in his course in this way. He will go ahead and continue his betrayal. It won't be long before time proves this even more clearly. 47, Sunday, July 14, 1963. The vain hopes of the Chinese comrades have gone with the wind. Today the Soviets issued an open letter, a vicious letter, with quite open attacks on the Chinese leadership. The vain hopes of the Chinese comrades have gone with the wind. I believe, and I have no doubt that now they have no other way to go to except the correct revolutionary road of our party. The letter is full of fabrications, slanders, and distortions. Attacks constitute the entire essence of this letter, which is rather like a long demagogic article for sentimental fools and cowards. There is one thing running through the whole letter. The Chinese leaders are splitters, dogmatists. Therefore they must be condemned and isolated, because they are dangerous. The Albanians are tools of the Chinese and the others are renegades, etc. 48, Monday, July 15, 1963. Khrushchev has come out openly. The time has come for the Chinese to strike. Hard at this dog. The Soviet letter does not contain any argument to challenge the Chinese documents politically or theoretically with facts. It avoids the key problems as the devil fears holy water. It skirts around them and launches attacks in the most banal journalese. But there is one very good thing about this letter. It helps the communist movement to see more clearly what these traitors are, and impels the Chinese comrades to step up their struggle. The roundabout method of the Chinese comrades' reaction, using such terms as the fraternal party, a certain leader, and a certain state, etc., had become stale and indeed had an effect which was not good. The way Khrushchev has come out now couldn't be more open. Now the time has come for the Chinese to strike hard at this dog, because this is the only way to triumph over Khrushchevite gangsterism. 49, Wednesday, July 17, 1963. The Chinese are continuing their useless talks with Khrushchev. The Chinese are continuing their useless talks with the Soviets at a time when Khrushchev is talking, eating, drinking, and laughing with a Harriman, Assistant Secretary of the American Department of State, and with Lord Hailsham, British Minister for Questions of Science and Technology. What a contrast. How far this betrayal is going. Khrushchev himself is leading the talks. He has cast the dignity of the Soviet Union at the feet of the imperialists. But as for the dignity of communism, he cannot come within miles of it, because he himself is not a communist, but one of the filthiest revisionists. It is rather surprising that the Chinese continue to waste their efforts on these traitors. There is a limit to patience. They may be able to stomach it, but we would have got up and left. There is no point in continuing any longer. The betrayal is flagrant. 50. Monday, July 22nd, 1963. The betrayers of Marxism-Leninism must be fought without mercy. Yesterday, Deng Xiaoping finally left Moscow for Peking, where Mao himself met him at the airport. Of course, they will issue some sort of communique to say that they achieved nothing. It is useless to talk with the betrayers of Marxism-Leninism, since they are traitors. It is useless to talk with the revisionists, since they are renegades from Marxism-Leninism. They must be fought and unmasked without mercy. 51. Monday, July 29th, 1963. Not capitulation, but struggle against revisionists. In short articles, the Chinese continue to inform their people and party about the various insults and attacks of the modern revisionists on the Chinese leadership. They are also pointing out the praises which world capitalism is heaping on Khrushchev and his treacherous line. This is their business. But on the other hand, they are not informing the Chinese people about the views of the Party of Labor of Albania, which is defending Marxism-Leninism, exposing the treacherous line of Khrushchev and company, and defending China and its Communist Party. The Chinese comrades are not right on this question. They are sticking to their old tactic, to the stand which they maintained at the 22nd Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. This tactic is no longer valid. It is an anachronism and harmful to the communist movement. The failure of the Chinese comrades to publish articles from the newspapers Repopulate in their press shows fear on their part. Thus, they are displaying vacillation on this question, and this is neither right nor principled. The Chinese comrades are not advancing in step with events in the times. If they think that they should not publish our articles allegedly to avoid Khrushchev's slander that the Albanians are tools of China, this is absurd. Because the 52. Khrushchevite revisionists are not hesitating at all to use this action of the Chinese as something to their advantage, by trying to discredit us and especially to present our correct stand as isolated. China is assisting them in this direction with the stands it is adopting. If China is not publishing our articles in the belief that it will place in a difficult position the other fraternal parties, like those of Korea, Indonesia, and Vietnam, which are still not maintaining a public stand in defense of China, this too is not right tactically. According to the Chinese tactic, we ought to retreat, to go back to the stands of the Koreans, the Vietnamese, or even worse, of the Indonesians. No, this we shall never do. They must move forward, and so must China. Marxism must be defended and defended strongly against traitors and renegades. These comrades know Khrushchev. Amongst themselves, they say that he is betrayed, that he is linking up with the Americans, that he is causing socialism to degenerate, that he is attacking them openly. But on the other hand, they are delaying their struggle, waiting. What are they waiting for? This is strange. There's a question mark about the future in this. Either struggle with the revisionists or capitulation. We shall press on in the fight. The line Khrushchev is following conforms to and serves the policy of the American imperialists. The Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, which was signed recently in Moscow, is conceived and dictated by the Americans and accepted without any alteration by Khrushchev. The American imperialists wanted the monopoly of nuclear weapons. Khrushchev gave it to them. The Americans talk about peace, and so does this lackey of the bourgeoisie, Khrushchev. But meanwhile, the Americans are preparing for war, increasing the stocks of atomic bombs for themselves and their friends, while Khrushchev 53 is disarming his own friends, and with his pacifism is disarming the people's. This means to assist the Americans. One side is armed, the Americans, one side is disarmed, Khrushchev's friends, and the two are jointly attacking China, Albania, accusing them of being warmongers, etc. It is clear even to the blind, let alone to the Marxists, where and in what direction the modern revisionists, with the traitors Khrushchev, Tito, Olbrich, Gomulka, Novotny, Zhivkov, etc. at the head, are going with their efforts. 54. Friday, September 6, 1963. The Chinese batteries open up against modern revisionism. China has begun to publish a series of articles in reply to the open letter of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. The first article, treating the theme of the death differences which we read today, was very good. Now the Chinese batteries have opened up. This is a great victory for Marxism-Leninism. The exposure of the traitors could wait no longer. The cup had been filled to overflowing even earlier. Now we are entering a new, more advanced phase of the struggle against modern revisionism. We are entering the phase of the overall organization of the struggle of the communists throughout the world. 55. Wednesday, January 1st, 1964. Our guests were very satisfied. Yesterday at the airport, we welcomed the government delegation of the PR of China, headed by Chu Enlai, in which Chen Yi is also taking part. At the airport, where there were nearly 3,000 people, the guard of honor was lined up. Chu Enlai emerged smiling from the aircraft and embraced us joyfully. In an open car, we passed through the streets of Tirana packed with people who were all enthusiasm, with flags and flowers in their hands. After lunch, Chu Enlai paid us a formal visit, while in the evening we went to the Club of the Stalin Textile combined amongst the workers, then to the Central House of Officers, and to the Rights and Artists Club, where all were celebrating the new year. The welcome everywhere has been extremely enthusiastic. Our guests were very pleased. We passed New Year's Eve very well at the Palace of Brigades with all the comrades. At the dinner, Oy and Chu Enlai both spoke. This evening we went to the Opera and Ballet Theater and saw a beautiful concert, which our guests liked very much. The cheering of the audience for the Albanian-Chinese friendship was ardent and heartfelt. 59. Thursday, January 9th, 1964. Chu Enlai's visit is over. Today, Chu Enlai left our country. His coming here aroused great interest within the country and in the international arena. Our people gave the representative of the Chinese people and the Communist Party of China an affectionate welcome, because we are linked with them in a sincere friendship on the basis of Marxism-Leninism. The Party of Labor of Albania and our people in the first place with China and its party are determined in the struggle against world imperialism, headed by American imperialism, and against modern revisionism, headed by the traitor groups of Khrushchev and Tito. The common struggle, especially at the present moments, has strengthened and tempered our great friendship. The great importance of China in the international arena is known, therefore world opinion is following Chu Enlai's journey with interest, and the papers are full of news about it. Naturally, the imperialists and the different reactionaries are waiting to see what the outcome of Chu Enlai's visit to us will be in regard to China's stand towards Khrushchev's absurd and deceptive proposals about the cessation of polemics. They are interested in both sides of the medal. If the polemic with the revisionists ceases, they benefit, because the renegade Khrushchev can continue his betrayal in peace. For our part, the cessation of the polemic will never occur, and 60. The Chinese, for their part, have confirmed that they will not cease the polemic. On the other hand, the imperialists are interested in the continuation of the polemic in order to get the Khrushchev group more deeply into their clutches. We do not want this traitor in our ranks and will do everything possible to isolate him from the Soviet people, the Soviet communists, and international communism. Chu Enlai's visit to us is very important, because it is much different to see things with your own eyes from reading them in the reports of Lo Shigao, the Chinese ambassador to Tirana. Chu Enlai and Chen Yi saw for themselves the strength of our party, its strong links with the broad masses of the people, saw the steel unity of the people. The party and the leadership, they saw and were powerfully affected by the confidence and enthusiasm of the masses in the construction of socialism, saw the confidence and courage of the people. The party and the army in the defense of the country and the independence and sovereignty of our homeland. Wherever they went, they saw the flourishing of our agriculture, industry, education, and culture. This is a great victory for Albania, because in this way the Chinese comrades, the Chinese people and party, build up their trust and love for our people and our party. Such a friendship is necessary for Albania, which does not need platonic idealist friendship, but real friendship based on Marxism-Leninism. I think our talks went very well. We understood our guests and they understood us. For our part, in the exposition which I gave, and in the summing up of the joint talks, our views were expressed openly, without any reserve, on all the problems. On strategy and tactics. We formed the belief that the Chinese comrades also expressed themselves openly and without any reserve. 61. We understand the major role of China, we understand the special situation and the great responsibility which every word, every move, and act of its leaders has. Likewise, the Chinese comrades understand our situation, the advanced positions our party has gained against modern revisionism, and they found these positions of ours correct and Marxist-Leninist. The tactic of the struggle which we are using and will continue to use also has its theoretical basis and does not overlook the strategy. In connection with the question of how we understand unity, our sides stressed the need to consult each other more frequently in order to coordinate our joint actions. But what is very important, and this came out both in the official and unofficial talks, is that now the Chinese comrades have no illusions about Khrushchev, that like us they consider him an inveterate traitor. However, Chu Enlai's exposition of the tactics which we should use in the struggle against revisionism was a bit long-winded. It gave the impression that Chu was using many phrases to convince us about something which he couldn't say openly, because it might arouse our opposition. Our only fear was that they might raise this question: would it be possible and necessary, in specific instances, to reach a compromise with the Khrushchev group against imperialism? We expressed our opinion openly to Chu Enlai, stressing that we would make no concession to Khrushchev, would reach no compromise with him, because he is a traitor. Any attempt at rapprochement on his part would be demagogy and a fraud to gain time in order to get out of difficulties. On this question, Chu Enlai did not express himself very clearly as we did, but he approved our stand. He agreed on those opinions we expressed about Khrushchev, and finally, on the pretext that perhaps the interpreter might not have given a good translation, did. 62. Not fail to add that when he spoke about a compromise, and this not on the question of a compromise with Khrushchev, he had in mind a Marxist-Leninist compromise. In a word, as Chu Enlai presented the problems, on the question of tactics in general, we had no reason to disagree with him. On some occasions and in some specific circumstances which are also linked with our advanced positions, we shall act on the basis of our line, always with caution of course. But bearing in mind at every moment our great common interest. We believe that time will prove that the Chinese comrades will advance more rapidly than they think. They are of the opinion that they have a broad view of the problems. That is their business, but matters must be taken up in time, and one should react to them with the tempo that the situation demands. This in no way means that all our predictions or all the conclusions we reach are infallible, correct, and precise. Therefore, exchange of opinions as frequently as possible is very useful. The Chinese comrades may have more facts, elaborate them, and naturally draw conclusions. We may see matters from some other angles, therefore, if we jointly exchange opinions, a more complete conclusion can emerge. Zhou Enlai received our ideas on the prospective plan for the coming 5-year period favorably. He found them in order and promised that China would assist us in the processing of oil, chromium, copper, iron, nickel, etc. In a word, he considered the economic problems we raised correct and in order, and later, when we have the draft 5-year plan ready, the Chinese will study our request concretely. Zhou Enlai was interested in the problem of labor power, which has been a continual worry to us. He considered correct the great care we exercise to avoid 63. Draining the population from the villages and to use the labor power in the cities as much as possible. Naturally, the question of bread was considered by both sides. Of course, this key problem for us will begin to be solved, especially when we have chemical fertilizers. Zhou Enlai found our orientation towards the further development of grain growing in the mountain regions also in case of a war situation interesting. The results achieved in the talks we can consider satisfactory, both to us and to them, from both the political and the economic aspects. This will further strengthen our friendship, will assist to strengthen the political and economic situation in our country, and strengthen the international position of our country even more. 64. Friday, March 6, 1964. Fire to the end against Soviet revisionists. The Chinese have informed us of a reply to a letter of theirs handed to the Soviets on the 1st of March in connection with a document which the latter sent after their recent plenum to all communist and workers' parties, with the exception of the Communist Party of China and the Party of Labor of Albania. The Soviet letter is very dirty, it attacks the Communist Party of China as a hooligan, and at the same time threatens it. The Chinese party has replied to the Soviets blow for blow and sent US a copy of their reply. We shall see how the Soviets react in connection with the proposals for a meeting, but I think they will grab at this issue, especially now that the Romanians are going to Peking in order to press, at all costs, for cessation of the polemic, even for a short time. The enemy is trying to grab you even by the fingertip, then your arm, and in the end your head. In no way must the polemic be stopped. Fire to the end against the Soviet revisionists. 65th, Friday, April 17th, 1964. The lackeys decorate Khrushchev. The Chinese leadership sends him a telegram of congratulations. In Moscow, yesterday and today, Khrushchev's lackeys awarded him decorations from the Gold Star to the Order of the Lion on his birthday. This is like the story of the Bible which tells how the 3 wise men of the East carried gifts to Jesus. The lackeys are trying to keep up the bankrupt's prestige. Telegrams of Hosanna are reaching Khrushchev from all sides, but the most unpleasant and completely wrong one is that from the Chinese comrades. The Chinese telegram of congratulations was written with their feet and not their head. Whatever the excuse the Chinese comrades may try to put up, none will hold water. Their act is a political and ideological class mistake. We can never agree to this act of theirs, and we shall find the opportunity to tell them so, if not directly, certainly indirectly. Today we shall strip Khrushchev of his title of honored citizen of the city of Tirana, with the motivation that a traitor such as he deserves. Thus, this important political act will be a decoration in our style for this revisionist, and at the same time an answer to the telegrams which the Chinese, Koreans, Vietnamese, and others sent him. 66. Pogradec, Thursday, August 6, 1964. There is something hidden here. Nestinese informed us from Peking that during his talk with Zhou Enlai, when he put forward the project for our démarche to the Romanians, Zhu implied that it did not quite please the Chinese, that it should be left for later, that we should coordinate these actions in October, on the occasion of China's National Day, when our delegation is to go there too. There is something hidden here. This is not clear to us, because on the other hand, Zhu considered the theses we are going to put forward to the Romanians correct. Zhou Enlai said that those were his personal opinions, but that he would inform the leadership. Then, on this occasion, he said that he would send us the minutes of the talks which they have held with the Romanians, and which we did not know about. Zhou also said that he had gone incognito to Korea and Vietnam, had talked to the leaders of these countries about these things, and expressed his regret that we were so far away, and that it was impossible to act in that way with us too. This is very surprising. We shall see. Everything will be explained sooner or later. 67th, Tuesday, August 18, 1964. This means to turn whichever way the wind blows. Prompted by the tactic which we are going to adhere to at the Romanian celebration, the Chinese leadership has informed us of its tactic. The Chinese delegation will stand up for the revisionists, but will not applaud, and if they attack China by name, it is not going to walk out. Hence, the disagreement will appear publicly here. What of it? This will be a good thing too. It would be good if the Chinese were to have the same stand as us, but nothing can be done about it. We cannot adopt their stand, because it would be wrong in principle. Together with this, the Chinese tell us that their leadership understands why Romania is taking credits from the imperialists and pursuing a conciliatory policy with the Titoites, for it has no alternative. Otherwise, Romania would be ruined. This view of the Chinese comrades is completely revisionist. In other words, the Chinese hold that credits from the United States of America can be accepted and believe that socialism can be assisted by imperialism. The Chinese are right off the beam here, let alone on the Titoite question. The Chinese are forgetting what they said and wrote earlier. This means to turn whichever way the wind blows. No, we will never agree with these opportunist views of the Chinese comrades. What becomes of the theses that so? 68. Silism must be built on the basis of self-reliance when, according to them, you can accept credits even from the United States of America. The Chinese will cause great damage if they get into such blind alleys. Why will Romania be ruined? Why were we, who did not accept credits from the imperialists, not ruined? Or can it be that with what they tell us, the Chinese want to imply to us at the same time that we were saved by some credits which they gave us, otherwise we would have been ruined? This would be the culmination of infamy. They are right off the beam and have not understood our correct, unwavering Marxist-Leninist line. It is only on the basis of the correct line of a party that socialism can be built. Credits and aid from friends are secondary and a consequence of this correct line. The Chinese are gravely mistaken on this question. How have they come to make this mistake? Is it possible that in the talks with the Romanians, the content of which we do not know, they are swimming in the same waters? In this communication, the Chinese leadership confirms that it agrees with Zhou Enlai's opinions in regard to the démarche we shall make to the Romanians. In other words, the Chinese leadership is supposed to be of the opinion that the things we are going to say to the Romanians are correct, but they would prefer them not to be said now, be left for later, and be said by an important person, because possibly DJ might take them amiss, that Tito is not the main and most dangerous enemy, and other such unclear, wavering ideas incomprehensible to us. What is hidden behind all this? One thing is interesting. When we informed the Chinese comrades that we were going to put forward certain matters of principle to the Romanians, they immediately told us of the talks they had held secretly with DJ as early as 69, June 5, and promised us that they would give us the minutes. So that must be where the snag lies. When they give us these minutes, we shall have a clear view of the stand of the Chinese towards the opportunist line of the Romanians and these non-comradely games they are up to towards us. We are sincere with the Chinese comrades, and we shall continue to be so. We shall not budge from our line because it is correct, and we shall speak our minds openly on everything to everybody. 70. Friday, August 21st, 1964. The Chinese are national chauvinist. Positions. We received from Peking the minutes of the cordial meeting of the Chinese ambassador with DJ 5 hours and a familiar lunch. Badnaris's talk with China's ambassador, 7 hours of secret meeting on the shores of a lake which went on till 3 a.m., and Zhou Enlai's talk with the Romanian ambassador in Peking. It is clear that the Chinese felt themselves in an embarrassing position towards us. That is why they informed us about these talks and contacts, because they could have kept them secret from us. The stand of the Chinese towards the centrist and nationalist views of the Romanians is not correct, but mistaken and opportunist. In informing the Chinese about their disagreements with Khrushchev, the Romanians are bragging about their courage and rabid opposition to the Soviets. They are cocky about this valor and boastful about their wisdom and their sensational discovery of a new and correct line. It is true that the Romanians are proving skillful in pleasing the Chinese, playing on the chord which pleases them and making efforts to draw them into certain actions of conciliation with the other revisionists. Such is the suggestion they have made, that it would be good if, before Zhou Enlai goes to Romania, he were to visit first Poland and Hungary. Apart from this, in Badnaris's talk with the 71 Chinese ambassador, we find the reason why the Chinese now underestimate the danger of Tito, why Badnaris presents Tito as an opponent of Khrushchev. Because Tito opposed Khrushchev ever the meeting and the expulsion of the Communist Party of China from the socialist camp and international communism. Tito supports Romania with goodwill and other such tales and fiendish tactics of Tito. It seems that the Chinese like all this, but they readily believe these maneuvers. In the conversation between Dej and the Chinese ambassador, Tito is not mentioned at all. It would not be surprising if they have removed this piece from the minutes. The stand of the Romanians is clear, but what is interesting is the stand of Zhou Enlai in his talk with the Romanian ambassador, a talk on a completely wrong course and from a nationalist position towards the Soviet Union. Zhou Enlai raises with the Romanians territorial claims against the Soviet Union. He accuses the Soviet Union, Lenin and Stalin because this robbery, according to Zhou Enlai, took place in their time of having seized Chinese, Japanese, Polish, German, Czech, Romanian, Finnish, and other territories. On the other hand, Zhou Enlai tells the Romanians that they are doing well to claim the territories which the Soviet Union has seized from them. These are not Marxist-Leninist but national chauvinist positions. Regardless of whether or not mistakes may have been made, to raise these things now, when we are faced first of all with the ideological struggle against modern revisionism, means not to fight Khrushchev, but on the contrary to assist him on his chauvinist course. What a line the Chinese have. On the one hand they defend Stalin, on the other they make him out a robber. They forget that raising territorial claims at this time, 72, even when fully justified, as is the case with Kosovo for us, leads to the creation of a situation of military conflict. We are opposed to the view of the traitor Khrushchev on the question of borders. But to put it this way, as Zhou Enlai does, is also utterly wrong. We cannot reconcile ourselves to these views of the Chinese comrades because they are anti-Marxist. Moreover, apart from this, the Chinese are making a major tactical error in telling the Romanians of these views, urging them on an evil course and trying to achieve rapprochement with them through wrong principles and tactics. Now it is clear why the Chinese do not want us to hold the talk we have decided on with the Romanians, because it is in flagrant opposition to the Chinese views. We do not want to make approaches to the Romanians or encourage them by blandishment, or by showing ourselves to be opportunists towards them, but by openly telling them the truth, the principles, the right course, the correct policy, the correct and resolute defense of Marxism-Leninism. In their talks with the Chinese, the Romanians do not raise these things at all, and they have no reason to raise them, because ideologically they are in revisionist, teach white positions. The Chinese are making a grave mistake, we must help them. 73. Poberdeck, Saturday, August 22, 1964. The struggle against Khrushchevism must not be diverted into territorial claims. The views which Chu Enlai expressed to the Romanian ambassador in Peking are very alarming. Chu Enlai is making a grave mistake that he is inciting the Romanians to make territorial claims on the Soviet Union. This is not the right way to bring the Romanians close to our line. This is neither the time nor the occasion to raise such problems which provide Khrushchev with a weapon to accuse us of being chauvinists. The ideological and political struggle against Khrushchev must not be diverted into delicate questions of territorial claims. From the ideological and political positions which they adhere to, as well as from the military angle, the Romanian leaders, for their part, have not raised the question of territorial claims on the Soviet Union, and neither will they do so. If the Romanians do this, they will lose in all directions because others will raise more claims on them. Therefore, the raising of claims and the way Chu Enlai has done it is not right, either in principle or as a tactic of the moment. The Romanians will certainly not approve Chow's raising this problem. They will judge this as a naive idea. 74. Of the Chinese leaders, and moreover will form a bad opinion of them over this. Even more important is the fact that Chu Enlai did not raise the question of territorial claims simply as a tactic, but as an issue of principle. The claims of the Chinese have been built on a dangerous platform and from a nationalist position, to the point that they themselves have pretensions to Outer Mongolia. This platform has nothing in common with the struggle against Khrushchevism and Khrushchev. The Chinese want the re-examination of all borders with the Soviet Union by all states. The raising of this problem at these moments is not correct. On the contrary, it is a grave error of principle. Even if we suppose they are just, the territorial claims cannot be settled at these moments. On the contrary, they strengthen the chauvinist positions of Khrushchev and at the same time assist Khrushchev in the unprincipled, treacherous struggle he has waged and is waging against Stalin. This is scandalous. In no way can we accept it. The territorial integrity of the Soviet Union must not be touched at this time, notwithstanding that history may have left problems to be tidied up. Today the whole struggle must be directed against the Khrushchevite renegades, but not with such arguments and methods as the Chinese are using. Mao has made a great mistake in raising the question of claims with the Japanese socialists. These actions are not correct. When Chu Enlai was here, he did not raise these things at all, and in these forms that we are hearing of now. Had he raised this problem with us, we would have opposed him, but regard. 75. Less of this, we must find the way, the most suitable time, and quickly to tell them of our opinion on these major issues of principle. Comrade Stalin was very correct, prudent, and principled in these delicate and complicated problems. At the period of the gravest crisis in relations with Tito-White Yugoslavia, when the hostility between us and the Tito-Whites had reached its culmination, when all of us were in struggle against the revisionists of Belgrade, who had set themselves against socialism and the communist movement, in a talk which I had with Stalin, he said to me, among other things, that from the formal aspect the Yugoslav Federation, as a union of different republics, was progressive. Seen from this viewpoint, there was no reason for it to be broken up, but Titoism and the Tito-Whites must be fought ideologically and politically as betrayers of Marxism-Leninism. The struggle against them must not be waged from the chauvinist positions of territorial claims or against the peoples of Yugoslavia, but the nations which comprise it must be assisted so that they enjoy the right to self-determination up to separation from the Federation. We must not harm or attack Yugoslavia or the Yugoslav peoples, but must convince them that they have a treacherous leadership which is leading them to disaster. Let the Yugoslav people speak for themselves. Let the Yugoslav communists speak for themselves. This was the principled stand of Stalin, and we were and are completely in agreement with this stand. The questions of territorial claims for all those countries which the Chinese comrades mentioned can be raised only when revisionism has been routed, and Marxist-Leninist Bolshevik parties have come to the head of those countries. Then the problems of disputed borders can be raised and discussed as amongst Marxist-Leninists in the spirit of 76. Proletarian internationalism, and just solutions found in favor not only of simple national interests, but also of international communism. There is no other road, and why other road is wrong, and I think that the Chinese comrades have fallen up to their ears into this grave error. 77. Friday, September 4, 1964. The Chinese are making gross and impermissible mistakes. We gave the Chinese our reply in connection with the question of invitations to the celebration of the 15th anniversary of the proclamation of the Republic. In the reply, we criticized them severely but justly because they are making gross and impermissible mistakes. First, we told them that it is quite inconceivable and unacceptable that the delegation of the Romanian Workers' Party and the Romanian government should take part in the celebration, and representatives of friendly parties and countries should not take part. We think that it is not in order to cloud a major question which is clear, or to raise unnecessary difficulties over it, because of an issue of tactics or diplomatic reciprocity. We cannot conceive how the Romanian Workers' Party and the Romanian government, which up to yesterday were publicly attacking all of us, which have been in complete solidarity with all the modern revisionists, and which have revisionist ideological and political stands at present, and very likely will have in the future, can be the only party and the only state which are represented at the great celebration of the Chinese people. We do not consider it right that the only party and government to attend your great celebration should be that party and government which yesterday, at the 20th anniversary, 78, of their liberation came out with a centrist revisionist report, which took the greatest care to avoid attacking American imperialism and the modern revisionists even with one word, which have very friendly links with the major renegade Tito, which are establishing friendly relations and receiving credits from American imperialism and the other imperialists. What the communists throughout the world think when they see that the Romanians have pride of place at China's celebration, and the Marxist-Leninist parties do not figure anywhere, it is good not to imply in any way, even from the surface of things, that the Communist Party of China approves the centrist line of the Romanians, and has cooled towards its loyal Marxist-Leninist allies. The Romanians do not base their struggle against the renegade group of Khrushchev on Marxism-Leninism, but only on economic contradictions or certain national chauvinist considerations. We must show ourselves very prudent and cautious in the steps we take with them. This is our opinion, which can change only to the extent that the position of the Romanians changes positively. It is right that you have invited many delegations of non-communist friends to the celebration, but to invite only these and the Romanian party and government to your celebration, and not invite the Marxist-Leninist parties, is not acceptable to party and world opinion. Second, we wrote that we consider incorrect the decision that, at the great celebration of the 15th anniversary of the proclamation of the People's Republic of China, in which many friends of China will take part, the official representatives of peoples most faithful to the Chinese people, the official representatives of communist and workers' parties, which take a revolutionary Marxist-Leninist stand and which are fighting the most ferocious. 79. Enemies, world imperialism, and its modern revisionist agents are excluded. This is an action which, at these moments, no tactical considerations, or especially the internal tactics amongst our parties, can justify. Neither our people nor our party will understand this. Even in the extreme case, if we tell them the reasons which impel you to take this decision, we assure you that they will still not understand. We think that neither the fraternal Chinese people nor the Chinese communists will be pleased when they see that their closest friends are not present at their great celebration. On the other hand, we think that this will be an astonishing thing, beyond understanding, for world opinion will be interpreted at will in many ways. Third, we wrote, you have taken this decision so that the revisionist renegades should not accuse you of holding a meeting before them, and hence accuse you as splitters. We think that such reasoning is not correct. The meeting which Khrushchev is organizing for the 15th of December has another character and aim. While the celebration of the People's Republic of China is the 15th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China and nothing else, the delegations which are invited to your celebration are not coming to hold special secret meetings, but to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. It is natural that delegations of our parties might exchange opinions. This is our right, and we are not afraid of anybody over this. The modern revisionists are holding hundreds of meetings on every possible occasion and have not waited for us to hold meetings. In fact, we have not held any meeting which they could use to accuse us of being splitters. Despite this, the enemies have not failed to 80. Accuse us every day, but however they slander us, they do not frighten us. Slanders are second nature to them. They long ago decided on and announced the meeting which they are preparing to hold in Moscow on the 15th of December, and did not wait to see what we would do at the celebration of the 15th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. The revisionists know also that we shall not take part at this meeting in Moscow. Hence, the Moscow meeting is not brought about by our going to China for the celebration. They will all accuse us who go to China's celebration not only as splitters, because this accusation is their main leitmotif. Not that our going to the celebration brought about the Moscow meeting as a reaction, because as we said, they had decided on the meeting previously. But they will say that in the last analysis, we met in Peking to re-emphasize our steel unity and further actions against them. What harm is there in this for us? None. But one thing is true, they will tremble at our going to Peking. It is a good and desirable thing that they should shake with fright. Hence, even if the tactic that the revisionists must take the first step is accepted, we do not take this privilege from them on this occasion by coming to your celebration. We are not holding any meeting in Peking. We have no knowledge of such a meeting and are not prepared for it. In conclusion, we think that the celebration in Peking is in no way analogous to the Moscow meeting of renegades from Marxism-Leninism. We think that with the decision you have taken about your celebration, you are creating a difficult situation for our celebration of the 20th anniversary of liberation. We have thought to invite you, the Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Japanese, the New Zealanders, the Indonesians, the leaders of Marxist-Leninist groups, and the Romanians to our great celebration. If we do not invite you, who, 81, are we to invite? If you come to us, then what you sought to avoid at your celebration, you will not avoid at all at our celebration. The modern revisionists will say that they met in Tirana in November instead of meeting in Peking in October, and so they will still accuse us of being splitters, since their meeting will be held in December. If for tactical reasons, you, the Korean comrades and the Vietnamese comrades, do not come to the Jubilee celebration of the 20th anniversary of the liberation of Albania, at a time when you have taken part at the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the liberation of Romania, world opinion will interpret this act of yours to the detriment of our common cause. If we adopt the tactic of not inviting you, the 3 allied and friendly countries and parties, and invite only the Romanians, a thing which we will all not do, even if you don't come to our celebration. And if tomorrow or the next day the Koreans and the Vietnamese do not invite us but for reasons of tactics and protocol invite only the Romanians to their celebrations, then the matter will be interpreted as if our parties and countries have turned out the sound horse, which is our correct Marxist-Leninist line, and are trying to mount the lame horse. Thus, unwittingly, at our political manifestations it will appear as if our political pivot is Romania. We think this is a mistake which must not be made. Why should we create complicated situations for our parties and countries with our actions when the issues are clear? We shall never stop our sacred ideological and political struggle against the modern revisionists with Tito and Khrushchev at the head. If we were to act differently, this would be a colossal mistake for us. We made our tactical stand clear to the Romanians in the talks which, 82, our comrade Manush Miftiu had with George Udej in Romania, and we are sure that he and his comrades have no illusions at all that we have shifted or will shift from our principles. And this is a very good thing and may benefit the Romanians if they still have any good in them. We approach the Romanians from the principle that telling the truth may taste bitter to them. But the truth is always the truth and must be said. We tell the Chinese that we are convinced that the opinions which we express to them are sincere. We tell them what we think in an open and comradely way, because for them and for us, the great sincere Marxist-Leninist friendship between our parties and people stands above everything. We guard and shall always guard this friendship as the apple of our eye. True friendship is based on the great sincerity which exists between friends. Possibly the Chinese comrades will not be at all pleased with our criticism, but we can't help that, because, I repeat, it is a mistake that only Romania should be invited to their celebration. This means to publicly take a centrist position. To invite states and parties to a national celebration is a political question and not a private matter, as if Mao were to invite a person, say, because his son was getting married. This action of the Chinese comrades does not appear to be fortuitous and unconsidered. There's more to this than meets the eye. We must wait and see. 83. Tuesday, September 15, 1964. The Chinese stand, they take the first step, we take the second. This slogan of action launched by the Chinese comrades against modern revisionists is not correct for all periods, as they wish to apply it in the struggle against modern revisionists. In my opinion, there is nothing revolutionary about it. It is a slogan of waiting, restraint, and the building of militant revolutionary actions adjusted to the moves of the opponent. In other words, you should mark time until the opponent makes his move and adjust your move naturally with exasperating delay, as the Chinese comrades are doing, according to the way the enemy beats the drum. The tactic of the Chinese is that if the enemy beats his drum loudly, they beat theirs a little more softly. If the enemy muffles his drum beat, their own drum should not beat at all. Throughout the development of the struggle of the Communist Party of China against modern revisionists, and mainly against the Khrushchevites, some astonishing vacillations have appeared in its tactic. In my opinion, this tactic can only originate from pronounced lack of clarity on principles over the struggle which must be waged against modern revisionists. Even on stands of principle over basic issues, we must say that the Chinese comrades have not always had mature opinions. It cannot be said that this has resulted mainly from there. 84. Efforts to find or to apply some appropriate tactic for the events which were developing, or because the Chinese were not fully informed of all the facts which impelled the revisionist enemies to come out against Marxism-Leninism. To be noted are the moments at the Moscow meeting in 1957. Comrade Mao publicly praised and supported Khrushchev. In fact, he approved his action in denouncing Stalin, approved the condemnation of the anti-party group of Molotov, etc., and advocated complete unity with the Khrushchev group. Of course, the Chinese comrades must have been in agreement in general terms with Khrushchev over his actions following the death of Stalin even before 1957, because when I met Comrade Mao in Peking in 1956, in our presence he criticized the incorrect activity of Stalin, and especially Stalin's actions towards Yugoslavia, because according to Mao, Stalin had made mistakes and the Yugoslavs were good Marxist men, and in order to support this idea, it was precisely the Chinese who were the first and the only ones in that period to invite the Yugoslavs to the Congress of the Communist Party of China. Why did the Chinese comrades display such short-sightedness towards these events? Can it be said that they had no facts on which to base a stable principled stand about these things? Perhaps this might be true, but however few the facts which prove the betrayal of the Khrushchevites, still this could not have been the whole reason which made the Chinese soft, because there was one major fact, the great work of the Bolsheviks led by Stalin over a long period. If the Chinese comrades had any faith in the work of the Bolshevik Stalin, their confidence in and elan towards Khrushchev would have been more reserved and 85. Moderate. But the Chinese comrades must have had pent-up dissatisfaction towards Stalin, because this was apparent in Mao's statement to the Moscow meeting, when he said that when he first met Stalin in Moscow. He was in the role of the schoolboy, and though ours were fraternal parties, we were not equal. Whereas, Mao added, now that we meet Khrushchev, we are like brothers. These remarks on Mao's part were condemnation of Stalin, condemnation of the cult of the individual and approval of Khrushchev's line. This was wrong on Mao's part. A respectful stand towards Stalin cannot be identified with that disparaging concept of Mao's. Stalin earned that respect and love which all, including Mao, showed for him with his deeds, and he deserved this for his colossal work, for his glorious struggle in defense of Marxism-Leninism. I don't know how Stalin treated Mao, but I personally met Stalin many times, and he always tried in every way to give me the feeling of an equal comrade, to create an intimacy. His home and himself handed me the dish, he sent away the waiters, and we got up and served one another as in our own homes. Stalin has taken me by the arm and walked with me in his garden, tired himself on my behalf many times, taking the greatest care of me, even over the hat I should wear to avoid getting a cold, and going so far as to show me where the toilets were if I needed them. Could you call this stand of Stalin's the stand of a teacher towards his pupil, when in fact we were his pupils and young pupils before him? Perhaps Mao was an older pupil, but still he was a pupil before Stalin. Since Stalin adopted the stand of a proletarian comrade towards me, imagine what a friendly stand he must have adopted. 86. Towards Mao, as the leader of the Communist Party of a big country like China, therefore, what Mao said about Stalin at the Moscow meeting seems to me astonishing, suspect, and said for the occasion, in connection with the new situation created in the Soviet Union. Could it be that, with what Mao said, he wanted to say to Khrushchev that now, after the death of Stalin, our two countries and two parties are on an equal basis, and we two, hand in hand, should lead the revolutionary movement? This did not suit Khrushchev because, regardless of the bouquets they threw at him, he sat glowering and worried. Or did he want to say to Khrushchev, you are a new boy, and I am going to help set you on the right course? Despite Mao's modest tone at the Moscow meeting, still his reasonable and correct speech gave you the impression of a far-seeing, infallible, direction-giving speech. However, it is true that the Chinese comrades did not take the question of Stalin any further. They quickly drew in their horns, and in the end, with reserve, maintained a stand pro-Stalin and against the Khrushchevite traitors. This change was good and correct. The Moscow meeting in 1960 put the Chinese comrades, one might say, soundly on the rails on all those capital problems prior to the meeting about which they were not completely clear or had illusions, or on which their tactical stands were wrong, irresolute and hesitating. At any rate, at Bucharest and the Moscow meeting, the disguise was torn from the Khrushchevite revisionists. It must be said that even after the meeting, the Chinese comrades did not have a real thorough understanding of the problems. They did not appreciate the danger of the disruptive anti-Marxist activity of the 87 Khrushchevites in its entirety. The Chinese comrades nurtured illusions and hoped for some correction. After the meeting, they concentrated more on preventing Khrushchev's attacks on us and on themselves later, than on direct and incisive attacks on the treacherous views which impelled the revisionists to act. Hence, in this way, the Chinese took more notice of the acts, and these they tried to soften or stop, than of their content and aims, which they ought to have fought and exposed. Hence, after the Moscow meeting and after the 22nd Congress of the CP of the CU, together with a certain principled defense of the Party of Labor of Albania by the Chinese comrades, Zhu and Lai, we see an orientation. More advice that this kind of open polemic with the Party of Labor of Albania should be stopped. In this period, though we were convinced that the Chinese were with us, they did not take open stands directly in defense of the Party of Labor of Albania, for principled and militant solidarity with it, against the Khrushchevites. In principle, could this be considered to be a wrong tactic of the Chinese for those moments? No, this tactic was not completely wrong, but in our opinion, it would not yield results. Therefore, let them adhere to such a tactic, but not for long, and let them not build up hopes that it would bring the movement good results. Thus, for a long time, the Chinese comrades struggled and stood in the position of stopping the open polemic against the Party of Labor of Albania. However, the attacks on the Party of Labor of Albania by the whole of modern revisionism continued for years on end, and the Party of Labor of Albania likewise for years on end struggled heroically alone. The modern revisionists attacked us furiously, but at the same time, they were fighting Marxism-Leninism. 88. Fighting to spread their revisionist ideas, to consolidate their positions, fighting to intimidate the waivers, and indirectly they were blackmailing the Chinese. China, one may say, did not engage directly in the struggle against revisionism. It fought when it was prompted, and precisely during this period of exaggerated sluggishness, the Chinese slogan came out. The revisionists take the first step and we the second. As to how far the revisionists had gone, what point the betrayal by modern revisionists and the Khrushchevites' aims had reached. All these things have become so extremely clear that the static tactic of the Chinese comrades in the struggle became exasperating and absurd. We can say that their struggle against the revisionists has been stepped up, has become more emphatic, mostly indirectly, and in the end directly, but it has taken a long time, a great deal of time has been lost. And the slogan of the first step has been applied rigorously on their part. And to bring about this first step so greatly desired has required many unnecessary, tiresome stratagems and why? Over a formal issue. Who began the attack first, you or we, when the modern revisionists had begun the attack not just against our party or some other party, but especially on Marxism-Leninism. It was of great and special importance for the Chinese comrades that the modern revisionists should name the Communist Party of China first, and only then should the finger be put on the great sore spot. This tactic is still being applied at present by a number of other fraternal parties of Asia, at a time when the world is on fire. Naturally, this stand is an anachronism, something stale. Even for these parties which have entered the struggle, to a greater or lesser degree, this stale tactic is like a fig leaf. The slogan of the first step, which seems a track. 89. Tied superficially and is considered so important for public opinion, allegedly because he who starts it is to blame, becomes very harmful when the criminal has unsheathed his sword and is wreaking havoc. While you maintain the forms lest they accuse you. But what are you afraid they will accuse you of? Of defending Marxism-Leninism? Our struggle is being waged precisely in defense of Marxism-Leninism. Hence this slogan is holding back the struggle for a great cause for the sake of formality, which has long been a thing of the past. The importance of our struggle has not been and is not based on whether you attacked first and I second, but on that you attacked Marxism-Leninism, and I am defending Marxism-Leninism. And public opinion must distinguish as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, and as clearly as possible who is attacking and who is defending Marxism. This is the main decisive capital issue, and not I hit back at you after you attacked me first. But even if we take the obvious case of the Party of Labor of Albania, which was the first to be attacked by the Khrushchevites, did we close the mouth of the Khrushchevite propaganda, which slanders us and has raised to a theory the idea that we attacked them first? No, they are doing their work. Or we want this to go down in history like the famous words of the French officers at the Battle of Fontenoy. Messieurs les Anglais, tirez les premiers. This is absurd when it is a matter of fighting the great enemy in the ranks of the international communist movement. Under the influence of this slogan, the forecast was made by the Chinese comrades that the struggle will be protracted, that this struggle will have its ups, and English gentlemen, you shoot first. French in the original. 90 downs. They also decided on 10 basic theoretical articles about which they told us that they would print one every 15 days. 14 months have gone by since then, and the 10th article has not yet come out, while the modern revisionists, without exaggeration, have written thousands of articles. Hence rigid, hieratic Olympian tactic according to the moves of the enemy. But in fact, they don't even follow the moves of the enemy. Why is this? For tactical reasons? For objective reasons? For subjective reasons? Because the Chinese comrades have failed to define a consistent line? This is astonishing. Many actions are carried out for form in order to put the blame formally on one or the other. The Chinese comrades contradict themselves in many of their attitudes. On the one hand, the Chinese comrades have picked up the final stone against Khrushchev and say to him, we are going to put you in your grave. On the other hand, they say to him, dear comrade, many happy returns. When they address him as dear comrade, the Chinese comrades justify this is done to get closer to the Soviet people. Interesting to try to approach the Soviet people by addressing this traitor as dear comrade. Today they say, we must struggle for the creation and consolidation of the anti-imperialist front, including even the revisionists. Tomorrow Mao makes a famous statement about border claims on the Soviet Union, with which they want to form an anti-imperialist alliance, and he draws a reply from Khrushchev who tells Mao, you are Hitler, and if you lay a finger on our borders, one have invented a new bomb which will wipe you out completely. Yesterday Tito was a traitor to the Chinese, later he, 91, was rehabilitated, then he became a traitor again, and now, according to Li Xiannian, this great traitor has become a minor devil. There are many things like this. The Chinese are very slow to react, and also understand things very slowly. To reflect deeply and to take a correct decision, even though a late one, this is very good, and how it should be. But to put off things for later consideration, and fail to come out with a mature decision, that is very bad. Good decisions must serve for today and tomorrow. Hence they must foresee the morrow, and tomorrow's decision must be consistent with that of yesterday, and linked with that of the day after tomorrow, that is. All the decisions must be like links in a single chain. Some link in the chain may be weak, and this, naturally, damages the chain, but does not ruin it. But if there are gaps and splits in its links, then it is no longer a chain. The Chinese comrades say that they have a correct appreciation of time, but they consider it something endless from positions of passivity, in the sense that it can pass freely, quietly, thinking that it is working for us. Therefore they are not concerned about any delay, hence, for them it will be very good if others too move at their pace. It is said that the Chinese comrades are not very pleased to be criticized, although they always say criticize us. The Chinese comrades are very shut off. They have the capacities and possibilities to extend their horizons, and this they must do. This is absolutely essential. You must know the peoples, their lives, their development and feelings thoroughly, in order to build up a correct Marxist-Leninist policy with them. Otherwise, you will make mistakes or build a stereotyped or schematic line based on formulae and chance happenings and events. 92. And consequently, you will not understand the crucial moment of the situation, the main link you must grasp to build a far-sighted and correct Marxist-Leninist strategy and tactics. Although Chu and Lai tried to belittle my opinion that imperialism and revisionism are trying to isolate China and that we should break this isolation, I think that the Chinese comrades ought to have this question constantly in mind. They have to break not only their political and ideological isolation, but also their cultural, commercial, and other isolation. This must be done on the Marxist-Leninist course, without violating principles, without weakening the security of the homeland in the general line, but also without exaggerating the world value of Chinese culture and without underrating the culture of other peoples. This cannot have results if it is done in a one-sided way, that is, if you like what I have, adopt it if you wish, but on the other hand, I don't like what you have, and I shall not allow my people to taste what you have that is good. These views are not correct, they are not Marxist, they are harmful. We must find suitable occasions to raise and discuss these and other questions of this nature in a comradely and fraternal way with the Chinese comrades. Perhaps there are some things related to them that we still do not know well enough to understand them in all their extent, therefore. Comradely internationalist discussion to the benefit of our common work is always fruitful and advances the work. Not only we, but the Chinese too, have great need to thrash out our ideas, to exchange experience with each other on these capital issues, and to more or less define the way we will act, or the methods of work, which may not be identical in form but must be correct in essence. 93. Must be aimed at one or more definite objectives for our great wide-ranging, complicated cause. Marxist-Leninist seriousness comes first on the order of the day. Any mistake costs dear, hence fewer mistakes will be made if we consult each other, if we coordinate our actions seriously and correctly. 94. Tuesday, October 6, 1964. Ominous signs. Certain unprincipled stands of the leadership of the Communist Party of China, especially some expressed recently, cannot fail to cause us worry. The question of the Sino-Soviet, Sino-Mongolian borders and the borders of the European people's democracies defined after the Second World War. All this expressed by Mao to the Japanese socialists. We wrote a letter to the Chinese comrades on the border problem, and I will not dwell on it now. In connection with this, they told our party and government delegation, which is in Peking at present, that they would reply to us in writing. But from the talks with Deng Xiaoping, it emerges that they have been mulling this problem over in their own heads, and in general they consider their stand correct. They do not look and do not want to look frankly at the danger and incorrectness of this problem. The Chinese comrades regard this as a correct ideological action, which harms Khrushchev and does not help him to use it against the Chinese. This is serious. However, their failing to maintain a Marxist-Leninist stand on this problem, and failing to publish at least everything that Mao discussed with the Japanese, shows that they are in a difficult position, are hesitating, have not yet decided what to do, and thus they are allowing the enemies to speculate about the stand. 95. The Chinese are whispering excuses that Mao mentioned these questions as historical facts, saying, we are not going to raise them with the Soviets except at the proper time, and we will reply to them with facts only about the question of Xinjiang, etc. Deng Xiaoping also said that they disagree with us when we say that Stalin acted correctly, in those circumstances, on the borders of Europe. They think that Stalin did not act correctly and left problems for later, etc. For our part, we quite correctly raise the question, why are such problems being raised by the Chinese comrades at these moments? Who benefits from this? Why these hesitations, when a clear and decisive stand should be maintained? Why these contradictions in their opinions? For the present, we can conclude only that these are not good signs, at least they do not indicate maturity in line. We must continue to exert a good influence so that they go no further in such dangerous mistakes and correct these errors. The Chinese comrades are taking an unprincipled stand towards the Romanian line. In this direction there are ominous signs. Chu and Lai said, we, the Chinese, understand the Romanian comrades, who want to take credits from the Americans because otherwise they will be ruined. We understand the Romanian comrades and their friendly relations with Tito, because they want to escape the Khrushchevite pressure and attack. At Bucharest, Li Xiannian developed the thesis that we should make approaches to the Romanians because they are very determined in their opposition to Khrushchev, and Khrushchev is a major devil, while Tito is a minor devil. This slogan has become very widespread. 96. In recent times among the Chinese cadres, including their ambassador in Tirana. In his talk with our comrades, Deng Xiaoping was much more explicit on this question. Apart from the above ideas which he developed further and defended, he said openly, A. The Romanians listen neither to us, to you, nor to Tito. B. The Romanians are resolute anti-Khrushchevites, therefore we, the Chinese, have decided to collaborate closely with them. C. We shall put aside the ideological questions with the Romanians. There could be no clear definition of an unprincipled line with the Romanian centrists. This is very serious and must make us consider why it is occurring. Are these fortuitous, accidental, immature, not well-calculated stands? Or traps set by the modern revisionists to lead the Chinese comrades into blind alleys? They could be all these things. Let us now try to draw some preliminary conclusions to see into the future more clearly. The enemies of our enemies can be our true friends when they are on the same ideological and political line with us. The enemies of our enemies can be temporary allies with us on certain questions, but we must not give way to them on principles, and we must make this clear to them, must not conceal our line and principles from them. The enemies of our enemies can be our enemies, and the two sides must remain and be fought as our enemies. The contradictions between these two sets of enemies are an incontestable law. They are inevitable contradictions, which are stern, continuous, consistent, principled fight deepens and makes more acute. We must take advantage of them, but must not soften and make concessions to one, 97, or the other, or fall for their traps and their demagogy. I am afraid that the Chinese comrades are not always very clear about these matters. In order to concentrate our forces on the struggle against modern revisionism, we must consider it the main enemy in the international communist movement. Or to use the expression the Chinese prefer, this is the major devil, and this major devil must be fought by the Marxist-Leninists consistently, unwaveringly to the end, in any form, at any time, and under any circumstances that it presents itself. This major devil, to continue to use the Chinese figure, is comprised of many devils, some greater, some smaller, some powerful, some weak, some disguised, some undisguised, some in the vanguard and some at the rear. Some attack with cannons, some throw the stone and hide the hand according to the situation and the circumstances. Sometimes these devils operate in isolation, sometimes they appear united, sometimes they split because of the contradictions among themselves. In order to regroup in factions in which they are linked by their interests in the struggle against socialism, or they follow the groupings and contradictions of that bourgeoisie or imperialist power with which they are linked through the interests of their joint struggle against Marxism-Leninism, their main common enemy, or the struggle of some groupings against other bourgeois capitalist groupings with which the contradictions become acute. In all this fierce and complicated struggle, there is a range of tactics on the part of the Marxist-Leninists, and this range extends from efforts to save the deceived and the less contaminated, up to the merciless destruction of enemies. But any tactical stand of ours must be based on proletarian principles, and not on bourgeois principles and diplomacy. 98. When Khrushchev's traitor group had not yet come out openly, all of us, some earlier, some later, some convinced and some less convinced, some in all seriousness and some dishonestly, said that the Tito-White gang in Belgrade was the main revisionist enemy, and it was decided that it must be fought to the finish. For the reasons given above, Tito-White revisionism was fought, but it was also underestimated by some who combated it only formally, while it worked both openly and under the lap. The fact is that it wrought havoc, inspired, guided, and organized others to follow it. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, the Khrushchevite gang emerged with all its own features and its own tactics and strategy. This gang called the Tito-Whites fine fellows. Only the Party of Labor of Albania remained unrelenting. Khrushchev too became a major devil. Tito was again given the title devil. Other devils emerged, and all these devils, in solidarity and organized, launched their powerful struggle against Marxism-Leninism on a world scale, against the Party of Labor of Albania, the Communist Party of China, and other parties which have taken a good stand. However, the resolute principled struggle of our parties, and all the Marxist-Leninists in the world who work actively, tore the disguise from the modern revisionists, regardless of whether they were minor or major devils. Things reached the point that the revisionist leaders of many communist and workers' parties had to adopt revisionist positions openly and fight us actively. This must be considered a great victory achieved, a victory which must be carried further. This caused many communist elements to break with the revisionist leaderships. Many were expelled from parties dominated by the revisionists, and created new Marxist-Leninist parties, and this process is continuing. This must be considered another major victory, a victory which likewise must be carried further. 99. Our resolute struggle, the exposure of modern revisionists. The defeats which they have suffered and are suffering every day in all fields of national and international activity have led to the outburst and deepening of the contradictions in the ranks of the modern revisionists. We must consider these contradictions, which are becoming deeper great victories for revolutionary Marxism-Leninism in action. Even in this situation, our struggle against all revisionist groupings not only must not be toned down, but must be made more severe. Our tactic of concentrating our fire on the Tito-White and Khrushchevite groupings was correct, because these two groupings were the pillars of modern revisionism. But this does not mean that we forgot to touch and combat the other revisionist groupings. In fact, we attacked and exposed them too. Our state relations with some revisionist groupings that are in power did not hinder us from waging our ideological and political struggle against them. Even now, the Tito-White and Khrushchevite revisionist groupings remain the main ones, the pillars, but in this situation others are being set up around them and are operating more actively. These revisionist groupings, which are neither new nor unknown, are displaying more forcefully what you might call their individuality towards a revisionist policy of struggle against Marxism-Leninism as savage as ever, but with tendencies towards new groupings with new tactics. We can say that the Tito-White and the Khrushchevite revisionist groupings remain the leading ones, and the tendencies of two poles in the ranks of modern revisionism are appearing clearly. The Soviet pole and the Yugoslav polycentrist Italian pole. I've explained this 100% situation in connection with Togliatti's testament, but the problem is that the Tito-Whites are trying to strengthen the groupings under their direction, and their purpose in doing this is always to corrupt Marxism-Leninism, to discredit and fight socialism, to extinguish the revolution, and to extend the life of capitalism, and these we must never forget. At the same time, they want to involve them in the struggle in order to speed up the process undertaken by them, and first of all, they're trying to speed up this process in the Soviet Union by exerting pressure and blackmail on the Khrushchevite group to relinquish some of its authority, to give up the idea of the leadership of world communism by this group, to weaken the Soviet Union as a great economic and political power and make it a weak, bourgeois partner of American imperialism. In order to achieve this aim as quickly and easily as possible, and this is not so easy for the Tito-Whites and the polycentrists, because the Khrushchevite group too is putting up a struggle and is trying to escape from this grip. The Tito-Whites and their allies are even using our struggle to put pressure on Khrushchev, that is, they are threatening him also with great danger from the Chinese. The Tito-Whites and their present close allies are not pursuing a stupid policy, but are varying it with more or less anti-Khrushchevite variants so that it can serve at the same time to catch fools in the net. It is a fact that the contradictions among the revisionists are becoming more acute, but is it right to say, as the Chinese do, that Khrushchev is a major devil? We must concentrate our struggle against him, while Tito and the Romanians and others like them are minor and unimportant. See Enver Hoxha, Speeches and Articles, 1963 to 1964, p. 270, Tirana 1977, eng. ed. 101, Tant devils. To speak like this is a mistake, indeed a serious mistake. Khrushchev and Tito are in solidarity to the end in their strategic aims. They may have different tactics, they may have disagreements, and these will be even greater in the future. But these tactics will never be compatible with ours. It would be a mistake to think and say that since the Tito-Whites and their temporary allies have contradictions with Khrushchev, these contradictions assist Marxism-Leninism. And from this to go on to the mistaken idea that the Tito-Whites are unimportant devils, whereas with the Romanians who pose as anti-Khrushchevite, we shall put aside ideological questions, which, in other words, means to support their centrist revisionist course, and to fail to fight their active and operating revisionist views. Tito is just as dangerous as Khrushchev, if not more so, therefore both must be fought with the greatest severity. Tito inspired Khrushchev, who now has entered a new phase. This new phase is, Khrushchev has been exposed as a revisionist, has set out on the road of betrayal and will never turn back. Now Tito is facing the task. Socialism must be completely destroyed in the Soviet Union. Khrushchev must go on following the bat of imperialists and be left without a feather to fly with in the process. In order to carry out this plan, Tito is grouping and consolidating his forces for the following objectives. 2. Fight socialism, Marxism-Leninism, our countries, and parties, the Soviet people and Soviet Marxist-Leninists. We must exploit the revisionist contradictions because they speak of the weakness in their ranks, but it is a great mistake to underestimate the role of the Tito-Whites in the ranks of the revisionists and to underrate their plan. 102, which might look lovely, because it appears to be against Khrushchev. Tito's struggle against Khrushchev cannot be inspired by the same aims as those which guide our struggle against the Khrushchev group. Tito's struggle is the struggle of one traitor against another traitor for domination and leadership. It is the struggle of two anti-Soviet traitor groupings against the peoples of the Soviet Union and the Soviet Marxist-Leninists, of whom both these traitors are afraid. Our struggle, however, is inspired by the defense of Marxism-Leninism, as well as by the defense of the Soviet people and the victories of the Great October Revolution in the Soviet Union, by the stand of internationalist solidarity with the Soviet Marxist-Leninists in the struggle against modern revisionism. Therefore, the aims of Tito's plan should not be underrated, but it would be an especially tragic mistake to proceed from the idea that in order to inflict the maximum defeats on the Khrushchev group, we should deviate from our principled struggle against the latter by falling into nationalist deviations, border claims, and other things of this sort which have nothing Marxist about them. Moreover, the modern revisionists are making such efforts to divert our principled struggle in order to provide weapons for the Khrushchevites, the Tito-Whites, and other groupings, and to make the Soviet people and the Soviet Marxists lose the perspective of their struggle so that they should not rise and organize resistance. Apart from this aim, the Tito-White and other revisionist groups want to use these deviations to put even more pressure on Khrushchev to make concessions and submit to imperialism. Therefore, the Chinese comrades ought to stop this course of territorial claims and raising historical issues immediately, because these lead to colossal mistakes. 103, which are irreparable, or can be put right only with great losses. Hence, the Chinese pretension that the road of claims does not help Khrushchev but fights him is without foundation. The claim that Tito is a minor devil is also without foundation. Indeed, it is based on a very wrong calculation on the part of the Chinese calculation, which is not only mistaken but is to be condemned, because it can lead to very serious errors. In this direction, the Romanian centrist revisionist stand has so enthused the Chinese that they are forgetting their ideological contradictions with them. This is not a militant stand, it is not an alliance based on principle. This method of allegedly exploiting differences in the ranks of the revisionists is neither correct nor fruitful. On this question, the Chinese comrades seem as if they do not want to know what are the real reasons which impel the Romanians to oppose Khrushchev. But it is sufficient for them that the Romanians are against Khrushchev for the moment, and proceeding from such an incomplete and unestablished premise. They are unreservedly supporting and extolling the views of the Romanians en bloc. This is what Deng Xiaoping means when he says, we will put aside the ideological questions with the Romanians. In order to strengthen some good positions of the Romanians towards Khrushchev, should we put the ideological questions aside and not speak openly to the Romanians about the dangers of their centrist revisionist line? Not speak to them about the great danger of Tatoism, of the great danger of their rapprochement with the American imperialists, and so on? These stands of the Chinese are wrong and astounding. The lack of consistency in the struggle to strengthen those who take a positive step cannot be covered with the words of Deng Xiaoping. 104. The Romanians listen neither to us, to you, nor to Tito. The Romanians may not listen to anyone, as Deng Xiaoping says, but they listen to Tito all right, just as they listened to Khrushchev yesterday, when they attacked us. But in any case, should the question of whether or not the Romanians listen to us stop us and make us keep quiet, refrain us from speaking our mind to the Romanians, from telling them what we think. We are saying it tirelessly day and night, and contrary to what Deng Xiaoping says, what we think has had a direct and indirect influence on the first step of the Romanians against the Khrushchevites. But what do the Chinese tell Desh? We shall help you. Just open your mouth and ask. Khrushchev wants to attack you. We shall defend you. These things are correct, but at the same time they imply it is your business that you rely on Tito. We understand why you are taking credits from the Americans, but just continue the struggle against Khrushchev and even demand Bessarabia, because it is your right, and we shall support you. This tactic towards the Romanians is not correct, because in their contradictions, bickerings, and squabbles with the Khrushchevites, neither Tito, the Romanians, nor the other revisionists are inspired and led by the Marxist-Leninist principles which guide our struggle against the Khrushchevite gang. In their contradictions, the revisionists are guided by the law of the jungle, by the capitalist contradictions of the moment. But this is not the case with us. But the Chinese may ask, should we take advantage of these contradictions, of these opportunities presented to us? Of course we should. To do otherwise would be the greatest idiocy, and we would not be worthy of the lofty title of the communist. But not in the way the Chinese are acting, because this course is a vicious circle which will spell nothing good for us. Khrushchev is not an isolated person. Khrushchevism represents a powerful retrogressive current, a considerable part of modern revisionism in power. Therefore, it must be fought with all our strength, uncompromisingly, without hesitation. We must take advantage of every weakness, every defeat, and every difficulty of the Khrushchev group, which we and its other opponents create for it in ideology. We must take advantage of the defeats which the imperialists inflict on it. This is one thing. But while fighting the Khrushchev group, we are not permitted to forget or underrate the role of other revisionists and weaken our vigilance and struggle against them. Tito is not an isolated person, or an unimportant and minor devil as the Chinese say. Titoism is a powerful retrogressive current, a part of modern revisionism in power, which has behind it a colossal power, which directs and assists it, American imperialism. Apart from this, Khrushchevism rehabilitated it, strengthened it, has though unwillingly, made it a powerful ideological and political partner which is now causing the Khrushchevites some problems. What sort of problems? It is not only the Khrushchevites but also the Titoites who are dictating the law in the revisionist ranks. In these conditions, is it possible to underrate Titoism? That would be madness, to say the least of it, because to underrate Titoism means to underrate the voice of American imperialism, which speaks through the mouth of Titoism in the ranks of international communism, means to underrate the sabotage, the undermining of the socialist camp by American imperialism through the direct action of its effective agency bought with dollars, Titoism. To underrate Titoism is betrayal, deviation from the principled struggle, and weakening of our struggle. That we should underrate and ignore Titoism while it goes on with its work, this is what Titoism wants. Tito also wants us, 106, to direct all our attention to Khrushchev because this interests him for the tactical aims of imperialism which he serves. Therefore Titoism must be fought with all our strength, without compromise or hesitation. Tito is linked with the Romanians in order to win them over to his side so that they do not come over to us. He wants to turn the Romanians from Khrushchevite reserves into his own reserves. This is a simple calculation. Meanwhile, instead of fighting for the Romanians to turn to the correct course and become fighters for Marxism-Leninism, the Chinese comrades say there is nothing we can do about it. We understand why the Romanians are linked with Tito and the Americans. Astonishing. This is very astonishing. But to continue this reasoning of the Chinese, let us suppose that tomorrow the Polish revisionists adopt more or less the same stand as the Romanians, quarrel with Khrushchev, link themselves even more with the Americans, etc. Link themselves strongly with Titoism and the revisionist groups with which they are in accord, and make certain declarations in which they are greatly interested, such as, we want friendship with the People's Republic of China, we are not engaging in polemics and other such nonsense, and continue their work. Then the Chinese, according to their own logic, will act as they are doing with the Romanians and say, we will put the ideological questions aside with the Poles too. And so on in turn. The Romanian-Chinese experience is a test bench. As a consequence, the polemic which we say does not stop is gradually ended. But if it is ended with all these, why should it not be ended with the Khrushchevites too? The compromise can easily be found, the forms, reasons, circumstances, etc. are found, and conciliation, fraternization, and unity is achieved. Who? 107. Benefits from such a course? Modern revisionism. What? Is betrayed on this course? Marxism-Leninism. In no way can we take this course of betrayal, and it is our duty to fight so that the Chinese comrades abandon this dangerous course on which they have started out. We cannot make any concession on this question, we must not waver at all. This does not mean that we have to use harsh forms, but principles are principles, and we shall defend them at any cost and sacrifice. The Chinese comrades are treating the Romanian question very frivolously and incautiously. The Romanians are playing their allegedly independent, pro-Chinese, anti-Khrushchevite, principled, centrist role as heroic and valiant, wise and fearless politicians very skillfully. The Romanian revisionist leaders are also playing the role of the matchmaker, who carries the proposals from one to the other allegedly with the best of intentions, proving very intimate with the Chinese, even holding secret conspiratorial meetings with them, and behaving like one of the family. All these dubious activities of the Romanians who have never had a stable character in their affairs. And traditions become dangerous if they are not put to the test, in the vice of Marxist-Leninist vigilance, by the Chinese comrades. Why do we have and must we have doubts about the Romanians? The reason is clear. If they are on the right Marxist-Leninist course, why do they not dare approach us? Because we tell them the truth? Then we are right to doubt them. Or, are they afraid of someone? Then they are not Marxists, and we are right to doubt them. Or because we are small, then they are not Marxists, and we are right to doubt them. Or finally because they are afraid that we are expos, in their game and their aims. Then we are right to doubt them, and we do well to doubt them, so long as they give no further proofs. The breeze can take their words, their deeds remain. The Romanians pose as great heroes because they are not going to the meeting. We value the Romanians' act in itself, it is good against Khrushchev. But they have declared that they are ready to go if the Chinese go, hence to a certain degree, they are in accord with Khrushchev's aims, because for Khrushchev the meeting would be a success for his aims if we were to go. We want the Khrushchevites and the other revisionists to hold the meeting. But if you were to ask me, are you convinced that the Chinese too want the revisionists to hold the meeting? I would answer that I could not swear to it. It will please the Romanians greatly if the meeting is not held. On this problem there are now other revisionists who might put pressure on Khrushchev to postpone it. Khrushchev wants just one word, one promise from the Chinese, and he will leave the meeting for later until he can patch up his leaking ship. If the modern revisionists postpone the meeting and launch a satellite carrying 3 men into the outer space in order to save their reputation, then the Romanians will win, and their mediation as go-betweens will have yielded its fruit. The matchmaker will continue to work to mend the broken bowls and fill them with sherbet for the marriage of the communists with the revisionists. But all the traitors of every hue and under any disguise will suffer disgraceful defeat. There will never be a marriage between communists and revisionist traitors. On the contrary, the struggle will go on until the total defeat of modern revisionism and the complete victory of Marxism-Leninism. 109. Tuesday, October 13, 1964. The Chinese have begun a campaign of approaches to the revisionists of Europe, who are in power. In reply to the question of the comrades of our party and government delegation, we trust that you will give us your answer to our letter in connection with the borders of the Soviet Union. Comrade Mao said, the future will prove whether we are right or wrong. We are not going to reply to you because if we did, we would reject your views as you rejected ours, and thus polemics would arise. Therefore let us wait, perhaps after many years we shall reply to you, but not now. This reply is not right, it is an unprincipled, incorrect, slighting and not at all comradely stand towards the Central Committee of the Party of Labor of Albania. On the other hand, this reply shows that Comrade Mao does not like comradely criticism, therefore we must come to some conclusions. The Chinese comrades not only reconfirm that Comrade Mao said what the Japanese socialists declared, but are maintaining their former positions towards us on these problems, and consider these positions correct. From the minutes of the talk with the Albanian Party and Government Delegation, October 9, 1964, Central Archives of the Party, 110. Other hand, the fact is that their stands on these problems are not as resolute as they appear to be when they are confronted with our criticisms. The Chinese ambassadors in the various countries of Europe have received instructions on what stand to take towards this problem. The Chinese ambassador in Poland seeks a meeting with Gomulka, undoubtedly to explain Mao's interview with the Japanese socialists. Gomulka refuses to receive him and recommends a meeting with a member of the political bureau. The Chinese ambassador goes to the meeting, and the Pole not only receives him coldly, but rejects what Mao said, and demands that the Chinese make statements recognizing the Oder-Neisse borders. The Chinese ambassador tries to excuse Mao, agrees to make a statement, and makes it over Radio Warsaw on the occasion of the 15th anniversary of the proclamation of the People's Republic of China. Meanwhile, the question of Polish territory seized by the Soviet Union remains as it was, as Mao has said. This interests the Polish nationalists, and at the same time also serves the Chinese in their struggle against Khrushchev and in their approaches to the Poles. Clever nationalist tactic on the part of the Chinese, and in order to correct the situation, this pearl of Mao's, the Chinese are stepping up their flattery of the Poles on the pretext that the Poles have contradictions with Khrushchev, and we should take advantage of these contradictions. Why are these contradictions of the Soviets with the Poles emerging now? And what sort of contradictions are they? Don't the Chinese comrades know the nature of these contradictions? Of course they do, and precisely for this reason they are urging the Poles on the nationalist road. This means, on the one hand, to pursue those ways and tactics which imperialism uses to play the peoples and states off against one another, and on the 111 other hand, to attempt to describe these as socialist tactics. No, these actions are not correct. They are not Marxist. In order to cover up this mistake of Comrade Mao, the Chinese comrades have started a rumor that allegedly he was only talking about history. But since he is talking about history, then why did he not take these questions right through to the end? In speaking of history, you cannot restrict yourself to speaking only about the Soviet Union, unless you have definite aims. And what might these definite aims be? They could be to attack and discredit Stalin, calling him a plunderer and an imperialist, as well as the Soviet Union when he led it, and to incite the anti-Marxist chauvinist sentiments of those revisionists who have contradictions with the revisionist Khrushchev. Since Mao spoke about history, why did he not speak about Transylvania too, which is Hungarian territory, but spoke only about Bessarabia and Moldavia, which are Romanian territories? Since Mao has come out to decide the borders of other countries for history, why did he not speak also about Kosovo and so on? No, the Chinese comrades themselves can see that this excuse does not hold water and is like a black coat sewn with white thread. On the one hand, they speak about history, but on the other hand, they defend the thesis that no established border must be shifted. Then the question arises, when you present these questions correctly historically and say that the borders must not be shifted, then why raise these problems at these moments? Who does this serve? Mao told our comrades, we are firing our artillery with blank charges, which means only to make a noise. A fine noise. Mao also said that no one is listening to Khrushchev's noise about the noise which Mao is making. That is to say, they listen to Mao, and no one believes Khrushchev. 112. Chev, or in other words, the Soviets allegedly listen to, understand, and applaud Mao when he tells them, return the Polish, Romanian, Czech, Chinese, Japanese, and other territories. While when Khrushchev tells the Soviets that Mao wants to destroy the Soviet Union, the Soviets allegedly not only do not listen to him, but hate him, because he does not return these territories. Astonishing logic. The Romanian leadership has begun to praise Mao within Romania, to describe him as a great ideologist and politician, who not only attacks Khrushchev, but also criticizes Stalin. It says that Mao spoke very correctly about Bessarabia, which the Soviets have seized from us, but we are not raising this question for the time being, because we are concerned about Transylvania. The Romanians are in the vanguard in publicizing the Chinese their maturity and our stubbornness. We heard from reliable sources that the Romanians had planned to bring us together with the Soviets, as well as the Chinese with the Soviets, at their national celebration. However, they failed with us because the Albanians are stubborn and sectarian, while according to the Romanians Mikoyan showed himself to be reasonable and a good diplomat with the Chinese. The Chinese comrades, for their part, have begun a campaign of approaches to the revisionists of Europe who are in power, with the exception of the Soviets. From the negative position they wanted to adopt on the occasion of the 15th anniversary of China's National Day, of not inviting not only the revisionists but also us now, they are going to the revisionist celebrations, speaking blandly with enthusiasm and ardor about the friendship of the peoples, etc. They tell us we must work well among them because we shall benefit from the contradictions which they have with Khrushchev. However, such is the Chinese enthusiasm that it may wipe out the contradict. 113. Shuns which the Chinese themselves have with these revisionists in favor of the latter or of an unprincipled compromise. This whole business indicates something unhealthy, non-Marxist. If the Chinese have a plan for an offensive in Europe, a new and original tactic to benefit from the inter-revisionist contradictions and to fight Khrushchev, they should have put it forward and discussed it together with us and the others. This they did not do and have no intention of doing. They are acting on their own, and all they are saying is only words. In practice, the Chinese comrades put the matter in this way: we are acting. You may follow us or not, as you see fit. We shall not get into polemics with you. Let us leave history to judge those things on which we are not in agreement. This is not correct. This is not Marxist. History is written every day. Every action, good or bad, of our parties is recorded, linked with former and subsequent actions, and when the actions are not well considered, they have bad consequences. We think that ill-considered actions must be avoided, and that there can be such actions both from us and from them, not only from the small parties but also from the big parties. Therefore, consultations are necessary. The fact is that the Chinese comrades are avoiding bilateral consultations with us as well as multilateral consultations. It has always been our side which has sought exchanges of opinions on different problems with the Chinese comrades. We have always taken the initiative. They have not put forward problems from their side but have discussed the problems which we have raised. We shall continue this correct Marxist method of work. We shall always tell the Chinese comrades of our views, even if this is hard for us and unpleasant for 114 them, and we shall demand from them that discussions must be held about our views and not avoided from fear that we shall get into polemics in this way. We are not afraid to discuss before engaging in polemics, and we have no reason to get into polemics when we have the possibility to discuss like Marxists and to convince each other with arguments and facts. We must leave nothing for history to resolve. We must solve those things which are up to us and solve them correctly, while history can give its judgment later about the solutions which our parties give them. We shall continue to collaborate and struggle in close cooperation on the Marxist-Leninist course. We are confident that we shall clear up these matters and put them right, in the great interest of the party and of strengthening our doctrine, Marxism-Leninism, which is under attack by the modern revisionists of every shade and by world imperialism. Thursday, October 15, 1964. The Chinese idea about an anti-imperialist front, including even the modern revisionists, is anti-Leninist. The Chinese comrades, Liu Shaoqi in particular, if I'm not mistaken, in a talk with a delegation of ours which had gone to Peking, launched the idea that in order to fight imperialism, and especially American imperialism, we must work to create a broad anti-imperialist front, including even the modern revisionists. Chu Enlai also mentioned such an idea in passing, when he was here nearly a year ago. We opposed his idea of collaborating with the modern revisionists for such a thing. But with the creation of an anti-imperialist front, we are in agreement naturally, and we are working for this. However, Chu Enlai did not retract or develop this idea, but left it in silence. He cast the stone and let it lie. This very important matter was raised at certain particular moments which seemed quite inappropriate. This idea was thrown in when our ideological and political struggle with the modern revisionists had become extremely acute, and especially when the Khrushchev group was up to its neck in serious, concrete collaboration with the American imperialists. Without any hesitation, it was putting into practice its whole anti-Leninist policy of Khrushchevite coexistence, making concessions to the American aggressive. 116. Policy, predifying American imperialism, weakening the people's liberation struggle, and activizing and sharpening the struggle against Marxism-Leninism, against the Communist Party of China and the Party of Labor of Albania. When the group of Nikita Khrushchev, at the head of the modern revisionists, was weakening the struggle against imperialism, the Chinese comrades launched the idea of the creation of an anti-imperialist front, including even the modern revisionists. Astonishing. However, we did not see any concrete action in this direction on the part of the Chinese comrades, with the exception of the fact that their propaganda against the Khrushchevites was not developed at the necessary rate that the moments demanded, although signs of softening in their anti-Khrushchevite polemic did not appear. We thought that this idea launched by the Chinese was not well considered, like many of their ideas which later, with the passage of time, they returned to and think over again. However, for a long time no more was said on this question, but 3 or 4 days ago this idea of the Chinese came out openly, publicly, in a leading article of the organ of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Japan, which, while condemning the meeting proposed by Khrushchev for next December, proposed a meeting of 81 communist and workers' parties to discuss and decide on the creation of an anti-imperialist front. As it appears, the Chinese have worked out their idea with the communist parties of Asia, and have come to the conclusion that this idea should be made public and discussed among world opinion and international communist opinion. If a son is born, then its father becomes recognized. If nothing results, then there still remains the good. 117. Kind intention, because the front had the word anti-imperialist in its title. This is no minor matter, but one of the most important. This is the laying of a revisionist turn of policy and ideology on the table for discussion, regardless of the fact that this has been dressed up as an anti-imperialist front. We must look a little deeper into what is hidden behind this ideological political action of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Japan, and who benefits from this new line which is emerging in international policy and the international communist movement. In broad outline, what is the objective of our policy and actions in the international arena? The struggle against world imperialism, against colonialism, old and new, in whatever form it appears. The struggle for the consolidation of socialism and the spreading of it throughout the world, unceasing aid with all our means, for the people's national liberation struggles to break the chains of imperialist, capitalist and colonial slavery, the provision of all-round aid to new states to consolidate the independence one, to consolidate the people's democratic state power, and to raise their economic and cultural level. Our struggle in the international arena consists of effective disarmament of the imperialists, who are preparing a nuclear war, preparing new chains for the peoples, preparing a new catastrophe for them. To fight for our triumph in these fields implies that we must defend world peace, or more precisely, must struggle to establish world peace. The imperialists, their military and economic strength, and their ideology are hindering this world peace. We must fight and destroy them through repeated battles on a world anti-imperialist front. The world anti-imperialist front is based naturally on the building of some alliances by our side against IM. 118. Imperialism, on the defining of certain stands on our part with objectives, more or less remote from one another, according to the targets which we attack and the progressive or backward political potential of the forces running these targets, etc. But in all this labyrinth of alliances and stands, we must not for one moment make concessions over principle, and at no time should our actions be fortuitous, arising from hasty judgments and based on passing circumstances. On the other hand, none of us should proceed from the idea that since I have prestige, authority, and strength, I judge more correctly, I am in a position to judge more correctly, and the others must support me, follow me, and contribute themselves in their own spheres where they have the possibility but always following me. Such a thing is neither correct nor fruitful. In such important actions, at the start of each new common action, with an international general character, we must always be guided by the Marxist-Leninist principles and Marxist-Leninist analysis of the situation. And for this to be done properly, it is not sufficient simply to launch the idea and let whoever wants to follow you, but you must throw in the idea and discuss it long and thoroughly with the comrades. The way the Chinese and Japanese comrades are operating is not correct and is unacceptable. To launch the idea of an anti-imperialist front, including even the modern revisionists, is politically and ideologically inconceivable, bearing in mind the stage the situation has now reached. If you base this idea on the experience of the past and deliberately overlook the result, or better, the fact that this experience of the past suffered defeat when social democracy voted for the war budgets in the first imperialist war and was transformed into a social chauvinist means for the defense of the homeland, then this is open betrayal. The open betrayal. 119. By social democrats, social chauvinists brought about as a logical consequence the split with Marxist-Leninists, brought about the creation of the Revolutionary Third International, which opposed the traitor Second International. Now the idea is launched of the anti-imperialist front even with the modern revisionists. But what is the policy and ideology of this modern revisionism, with which we are supposed to unite to create this anti-imperialist front? A policy and an ideology precisely the opposite of our Marxist-Leninist ideology. A policy and ideology which are actively in struggle to sabotage the fundamental issues of our struggle against imperialism and colonialism. For the triumph of socialism and Marxism-Leninism, for the real solution to the problems of general and total disarmament, etc. Etc. Since we are in fierce and open struggle with modern revisionism on these main questions of principle and practice, how can we conceive an alliance or a political and ideological front against imperialism and the world bourgeoisie with the agency of the bourgeoisie and its ideology? The anti-imperialist front means a political front, first of all. The question arises, is it possible for US Marxist-Leninists to create a common front with the modern revisionists? Apparently, to the Chinese and Japanese it is possible. To us, no, this can never be. But is it possible for the Marxist-Leninists to form a political front with the modern revisionists against American imperialism, while continuing the ideological struggle with them, or by putting aside the questions which divide us ideologically, as the Japanese comrades say? We say, no, in no way. For the Marxist-Leninists, there is no policy without ideology. With Egypt, with Mali, with Burundi, and with many other national states, an anti-imperialist front can be formed. Here there is policy, but there is also ideology. 120. However, even in this case, we make no concessions or deals over principles with them. They know our principles, because we do not conceal them. On the contrary, it is those principles which constitute our strength and the success of this alliance, from which a number of bourgeois national states want to benefit in their struggle against imperialism. This is of interest to us, because in this way we weaken imperialism. And this is of interest to them too, because by weakening imperialism they strengthen themselves. However, the struggle against imperialism automatically strengthens the revolutionary popular forces. First of all, hence, the revolution, socialism, reap all-round victories. At the same time, amongst the bourgeois national states which are fighting on this anti-imperialist front too, a differentiation will take place. The class struggle and the revolution will develop. Here more quickly, there more slowly, but nevertheless always with struggle and efforts. But the modern revisionists, Khrushchev, Tito, etc., with whom we are asked to form such alliances and fronts as those proposed, what are they fighting for? Are they fighting for socialism, for the revolution, for Marxism-Leninism? You have to be a revisionist to say yes. Marxists say that the revisionists are and always will be anti-revolutionaries, anti-Marxists, that they are fighting against socialism and communism, fighting to extend the existence of capitalism. Then to form an anti-imperialist front with the modern revisionists means that the Marxist-Leninists must turn into Don Quixotes and wage a stern struggle against windmills, that is, wage a struggle against the imperialist wind, a struggle against imperialism, which has no Marxist-Leninist flavor either politically or ideologically. Only the modern revisionists wage a quixotic struggle against imperialism. If you have a mind to wage such a struggle, then of course. 121. The anti-imperialist front with the modern revisionists is possible and realizable. This is the ideal of the Washington chiefs, Tito, Khrushchev, the modern revisionists, social democracy, and so on. If you have this idea, that means you are no longer a Marxist, but a revisionist. The Marxist-Leninists cannot take this course of betrayal and must fight such an idea, which is utterly revisionist and treacherous from start to finish. The revisionist traitors Khrushchev, Tito, and company dream of an idea, a stroke of genius. This idea gets them out of their difficulties, pulls them from the grave, which we Marxists have dug for them. And it is the Chinese and Japanese comrades who are holding out their hand to pull them from this grave. Khrushchev wants to hold the meeting of the 81 parties and expel us. In acting in this way, he is committing suicide. This is precisely what we want and are fighting for, to bury modern revisionism. We are acting correctly and refusing to go to their meeting, and we want the meeting to be held without us. The Chinese and the Japanese are opposed to Khrushchev's meeting, but their desire is that the meeting which they themselves proposed should not be held without our participation. For the meeting to be held without us is a defeat for modern revisionism. As usual, Khrushchev has got into a trap, into an adventure. His revisionist associates held back, opposed the meeting, some vociferously, some in a low voice, but all of them in order to save modern revisionism from this predicament. The revisionists are able to do many things to extend their existence. Hence, Khrushchev's meeting was compromised, reached an impasse. And instead of working to deepen the crisis in which modern revisionism is wallowing, to exploit the success, the Japanese comrades, with their proposal of a new 81 parties meeting with the aim of creating an anti-imperialist front. 122. Did the modern revisionists the favor of holding out a branch to pull them from the grave? This is an olive branch, a typical example of a completely anti-Marxist act. What does the proposal of the Japanese comrades mean in practice? You, Soviet comrades, give up the idea of the meeting which you have raised, allegedly to iron out the ideological differences and bring unity to the ranks of the international communist movement. Preparations are needed until the printing of the 10 articles of the Communist Party of China, this famous series, is complete. Let us prepare another meeting, which we propose for the creation of an anti-imperialist front. This is very interesting, very much needed today and urgent. It is acceptable to all parties. Let us put aside what divides us and look at what unites us. And this is what you, Nikita Khrushchev, have said and want. At this meeting we should not speak about our differences, but only about the anti-imperialist front, which you are in favor of and talk about too, Nikita. Hence we are to go to the meeting and grind away like a mill without grain, make a noise and come out and struggle against windmills. We think that you, Nikita, have no opposition to the roar of artillery with blank charges. But we shall come out of the meeting with something important, with a steel unity against imperialism. This is a colossal success on a colossal issue. This automatically, dear Nikita, softens the polemic and smooths over the other disagreements. This is what the Japanese want to say with their brilliant proposal about a new meeting. And Nikita Khrushchev, if he is not entirely an ass, will say to the dear Japanese comrades, but where have you been up to now? We want this too. This has been my aim, to cease the polemic after all, let the Chinese fire. 123. Their last shot and let us kiss and make up, bring out a statement, even with a bit more bite than the Moscow statement had, and put an end to this difficult situation that has been created for us. As to how things will go after the meeting, that is up to you, or are you going to accuse me again of violating the second statement as I did the first? In that case, I shall reply that you are slandering me, that you have violated the second statement and not I. In other words, the Chinese idea, concretized by the Japanese in the proposal for a new meeting of communist and workers' parties of the world, is a revisionist deviation from the Marxist-Leninist positions of the struggle against modern revisionism, a revisionist compromise with the anti-Marxists. We must reject, oppose, and fight this because it will have evil and dangerous consequences for Marxism, Leninism, socialism, and communism. We must be vigilant towards the ways and methods which the Chinese and Japanese comrades will employ to develop this brilliant idea. Are they going to consult us? In principle, this should be done. If they act in this way, we shall tell them of our opinion. If they do not act in this way, we shall still tell them of our opinion. If they act publicly without seeking our opinion, or while refusing to discuss our opinion, then we shall be obliged to make our stand on this problem known publicly too. Refers to the 10th article of the CP of China against modern revisionism, which was never published. 124. Saturday, October 31st, 1964. In no way can we reconcile ourselves to these views of Chu Enlai. Yesterday, Comrade Ernestinas communicated to us what Chu Enlai, on behalf of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, told a group of ambassadors for the central committees of their respective parties. The same day, all the comrades of our leadership were informed of the exact content of Chu Enlai's statement. He pointed out to the ambassadors that what he was telling them, he had also previously told Shevchenko, the Soviet ambassador in Peking. The views expressed by Chu Enlai are entirely unacceptable to our party, both in essence and in form, because they are profoundly opportunist, capitulationist towards the Khrushchevite revisionists, fraught with aims dangerous to Marxism, Leninism, and the further struggle against modern revisionism, and are utterly provocative towards our party. Chu Enlai's views, expressed in the name of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, about the fall of Khrushchev, about the people who replaced him, about their aims and future policy, about the unity of the world communist movement, about the unity of the socialist camp, and about the method and the line which we must follow in the struggle against imperialism and modern revisionism, in all the key directions of this new 125 situation which has been created, in my opinion, are very unclear, vacillating, conciliatory, and opportunist from start to finish, not to use stronger terms for the time being. These opinions indicate a capitulation to modern revisionism. We cannot reconcile ourselves in any way to these views of Chu Enlai, because they are revisionist from start to finish, anti-Marxist, capitulationist, and lead to the road of betrayal of Marxism, Leninism. In presenting such views, the Chinese comrades are making very grave mistakes, and are and will be bringing colossal harm to communism. The views which Chu Enlai expressed and the manner in which he expressed them to the ambassadors are full of anti-Marxist great state and big party sentiments, which must be condemned. With the feeling of scorn and disregard for the personality of a Marxist-Leninist party, which, according to the activity and judgment of Chu Enlai, does not need to be convinced after serious Marxist-Leninist discussion, but must be driven with a stick, according to the conductor's baton, a term fabricated by them appropriately against Khrushchev, which it is quite obvious that they themselves are now using against our party. There is no trace of Marxist honesty or political maturity, let alone ideological maturity, about the hidden aims of the actions which the Chinese have in mind. Such an immature, vacillating stand of the Chinese with frequent, marked, and astonishing oscillations, sometimes to the left and sometimes to the right, comes as no surprise to us. We have encountered such a stand on their part during our common struggle, especially against the Khrushchevite, Titoite, and other modern revisionists. Although we cannot say we have observed such a thing in regard to their stands on principle and in practice against imperialism, and especially against American imperialism. 126. What they will do later is another matter. Let us hope they don't have oscillations and let us make our contribution to this end. From all these observations we can reach a conclusion, and this declaration of Chu Enlai further confirms our opinion, that the Chinese comrades did not want to go so far in the struggle against the modern revisionists, and had not envisaged such an extension of the struggle against them, such bitterness with them. This comes about because they had probably not thought out and understood the danger of modern revisionism, its ferocity, in all its real extent, and therefore were not spiritually armed for such a struggle. The Chinese had thought that matters would not become so acute with the modern revisionists, nurturing the idea that the modern revisionists would prove reasonable, that the article entitled Long Live Leninism, and some internal articles and debates would suffice to convince Khrushchev and his associates to return to the line which the Chinese would show them. However, this did not and could not occur. Our party foresaw such a thing correctly. It was prepared from every standpoint for a resolute struggle to the end against modern revisionism. Thus the Chinese comrades found themselves on the defensive and not on the offensive. They began and continued on the defensive, while the revisionists attacked us openly and we likewise attacked them openly. The stand of the Chinese, even after the public attack of the Soviet revisionists on us, was that the open polemic must be stopped. Later this polemic went too far and could no longer be stopped. But during the struggle, hesitation, temporary halts in the polemics were apparent among the Chinese comrades, from the assessment which the Chinese make of the struggle against revisionism in this situation, and from the way Chu Enlai expressed himself to the ambassadors. 127. It is clear that they are tired of the struggle, which was a heavy burden for them, that they want to pull out. And that is why they judged the downfall of Khrushchev as the most appropriate moment for them to retire with honor. And in the most anti-Marxist, unfriendly, uncomradely way, formally at least, they ought to preserve the forms of friendship with the ally with whom they have fought shoulder to shoulder. The Chinese comrades took their own decisions, and what sort of decisions, and tried in the most brutal way to impose an impermissible meeting on us too. How did the Chinese comrades judge the new situation? In the most deplorable way. They have not thought with their heads, but with their feet. If we are still of the opinion that they are Marxists. But, however they have thought, with their heads, their hearts, or their feet, this is revisionist thinking to achieve revisionist results. In short, for them the fall of Khrushchev is everything. According to them, the major thing has been achieved, and now it is only a matter of time for everything to be put right. The Chinese comrades say, we must hold out our hand to the Soviet comrades, the associates of Khrushchev, must forget the past, it's over and done with, we must be understanding with the Soviet comrades. Hence, according to them, we must assist these fine Soviet comrades. Khrushchev died, Khrushchevism died. There is no one left who must acknowledge the mistakes made, there is no one who ought to make self-criticism. Of course, the dear Soviet comrades made the self-criticism they had to make with the bringing down of Khrushchev. Now continue the Chinese comrades through the mouth of Chu and Lai, indeed before all the ambassadors, nothing remains but to pack our bags quickly, because time does not wait, and set off for Moscow, to kiss one another on the day of the celebration of the Great October Socialist. 128. Revolution. And the gesture is solemn and theatrical, because Chu and Lai also speaks about the theater which they made of their national day, the 1st of October, but then the celebration is a solemn day as well. Hence we are to go to Moscow as the revolutionaries we are, and steal our unity together with the great revolutionaries that we find there. What a comedy! As if this were not enough, Chu and Lai rose to his feet, and in front of all the other ambassadors, said to our ambassador, I know that you don't have even diplomatic relations with the Soviets, because they broke them off. But now there is no one to make self-criticism because Khrushchev has been removed. Therefore, Mehmet Shehu should pack his bag quickly and set off for the celebrations in Moscow. And he added further, when I leave you, Shevchenko will come to a meeting with me, and I shall tell him that the Supreme Soviet should invite the 12 socialist countries to the celebration. What infamy! He did not forget to say to the ambassadors also, and this certainly addressed to the Romanians, as they told me, they had reached agreement with the Romanians earlier. If one of you has any special proposal, I can make it directly to the Soviets. In other words, you may propose that the Yugoslavs should be invited to the celebration, and we have no objection to this. Indeed, between ourselves, this would please us. What treachery! This whole decision, this whole idea, this whole way of raising this question of such importance for the future of communism has nothing Marxist about it, is anti-Marxist, opportunist, revisionist treachery in its entirety. This is absolutely identical with the action of Khrushchev when he went to Belgrade for the first time to embrace Tito, to beg his pardon for the crimes of Stalin against him and to rehabilitate this traitor. Such a thing proves all that I've said above about 129, how the Chinese conducted the polemic and how they understood the struggle against revisionism, but at the same time this proves that they are idealists, fatalists. And see the question of the struggle against modern revisionism from the angle of the struggle against the individual, from the individualist angle, not the principled angle. See it from the chauvinist position of domination, prestige, etc. How undignified they show themselves towards the class enemy, the enemies of the revolution, the enemies of our ideology. On the other hand, and apart from what I said above, from the scandalous performance of Chu and Lai, we must draw other logical conclusions which, regrettably, confirm their betrayal. What are they? 1. To assemble the ambassador of Romania, and finally, even the ambassador of Cuba together with us means to say to them, you, Romanian comrades, who up till yesterday were on the road of betrayal, and you, Cuban comrades, although you never failed to pour all those praises on Khrushchev, fully deserve the honor of being called those who brought down Khrushchev. We, the popes of Peking, consider you as such. Amen. 2. As to you Albanians, we do not even ask your opinion about these situations, or what you think about the proposals we are making. You must do as we say immediately. Put aside any claim you have on the Soviet comrades. It doesn't matter that the Soviet comrades have done all these things to you for 5 years on end, up to the point that they called you spies of imperialism and broke off relations with your state, but you should bow your heads and hurry to Knasa. What a dirty feudal fascist mentality. No bourgeois could speak in such a way. Even bourgeois dignity and standards do not permit such disgraceful arrogance. As is known, we immediately slapped back our reply, scorching their faces like a branding iron. 133. Al this was a provocation against us, and on the other hand, it was a scene prepared to tell the Soviets, the Romanians, the Cubans, and others of this ilk. From now on, I'm breaking with the Albanians. I'm no longer in solidarity with them, on either the political or the ideological issues. From now on, the Albanians are acting on their own, and they must bear the responsibility for everything they do. This is evident, because the Chinese comrades knew very well that we would not proceed on this road of betrayal as they are doing, that we would reply to them. Therefore, they gave their reply on this issue to the Soviets and others in advance. 4. From the haste with which they acted in connection with this so important question, without previously consulting us, and this demand of ours is lawful, and without waiting at least for our reply, we are obliged to think that they created a fait accompli, because they might have been afraid lest some part of the political bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, impelled by our reply, would react and consequently this treacherous action would be stopped. 5. Regardless of the servility, the lack of dignity which they display in begging the Soviet revisionists to invite them to the celebration of the October Socialist Revolution, or to meetings, as the Soviet renegades please, their begging to go to the celebration of the revolution in Moscow conceals in itself a base hankering after fame. Their intention is to go to Moscow and say to the world, say to the Soviets, see, we've come as the cosmonauts of Peking, as the victors who brought down Khrushchev, we are the brilliant, infallible brain of the communist movement. All have been brought down, all were wrong, Stalin, Khrushchev, and the others, Mao alone saw and sees things correctly. Hence, now it is completely right to say Marx, Engels, Lenin, Mao. 131. However, if the Soviet revisionists, who are always amongst the worst revisionists, are intelligent, they will hardly fall for this clumsy trap of Chu unless they consider they will gain more than they lose from this. It is possible that they will not act as Chu and Lai wishes. They may invite him, or someone else later, not as the victor, but as the vanquished to Knasa. Briefly, this is a situation, a grave situation, very dangerous and harmful to the international communist movement. The Communist Party of China has a colossal weight in the international communist movement. This weight has been increased by its stand against modern revisionism, but many of its waverings and mistakes, which we know, the others do not know yet. The weight of China in the international arena and its role in the world is great. Whether or not the Communist Party of China is on a correct, resolute Marxist-Leninist line means whether the revolution will advance or will be slowed down, delayed, and damaged. But in the end, whatever occurs, the revolution, Marxism-Leninism will triumph. The course on which the Chinese comrades want to set out and are setting out is very dangerous, very harmful. Chu and Lai declared, the polemic ceased on the 16th of October, we declared an armistice. We shall have some contradictions and the polemic might flare up again, but again it will all die down, and so on. This is precisely the tactic of the revisionists towards their comrade Tito. This is just how they acted with Tito. Kisses, while not forgetting to say we have some contradictions, sometimes they engaged in polemics with the Titoites, but always reluctantly, because if they had failed to do so, they would have been exposed more rapidly. And then kisses and more kisses, but not only that. During this period, Tito was inspiring them, one might say, in policy. 132, in ideology, in organization, and degeneration. And in the end, even the famous contradictions disappeared from their vocabulary and unity was achieved. Chu and Lai's theory is a forewarning of the same tactics and actions. We must be very, very vigilant and continue to struggle resolutely. We shall encounter many difficulties, they will isolate us, but with struggle we shall break out of the encirclement, because Marxism-Leninism cannot be isolated or suppressed. We are Marxists. The Party of Labor of Albania is a glorious Marxist-Leninist party. Therefore we shall break out of any encirclement, any isolation. It will tell the truth with force, and the Marxists everywhere in the world will hear it. Justice will triumph. In no way will we accept the revisionist views and actions of the Chinese. On the contrary, we must expose and fight them. The bridges connecting us with them are collapsing, but we shall strive to the end to influence them with our correct stands. We must do the maximum, which principle permits, to avoid coming out openly against the Communist Party of China, but indirectly after a time, there is no way to prevent the split from becoming obvious. This has its harmful aspects, but also its good aspects. The just struggle we have waged up to now against revisionists has opened the eyes of many people in the world, and they are able to understand quickly who is on the right road and who is not. We must use both methods. To the Chinese, we must openly express our views on everything. We must point out clearly our disagreements, everything about which we are not of the one opinion with them. While in the press, we must publicly maintain an open stand on every problem, without mentioning the Chinese, and regardless of whether it will be understood that it is directed against the Chinese views and stands. This is the 133 only correct Marxist-Leninist course. Wherever our opinions on certain actions are compatible, we shall be in accord. Wherever we are not of one opinion, we shall never be in agreement. If things reach the point of the breaking of relations and for our differences to come out in the open, let the Chinese do this. Let them use even the Khrushchevite arsenal if they want to. Then our fire will reply to them differently. Cautiously and progressively, we must make the party aware of this new situation, must strengthen and temper the party and the people, and arm them for possible dangers in the future, and must strengthen our management of the economy. We must re-examine the draft plan more closely in connection with these situations which exist. It will be impossible to prevent the disagreements with the Chinese which have begun on ideological and political questions from influencing our economic relations with them. Perhaps the effect will not come immediately and brutally, as Khrushchev acted, but the coercion, delays, and pressures will come gradually. Therefore, we must not go blindly into investments and constructions, into an extensive development, because such a thing could break our backs. We must not become dependent on the credits they might grant us, because they might slow them down and cut them off at the moment they find most appropriate. We must follow events and situations with great care, must be cool-headed, must always preserve our aplomb. If up till now we have had to be patient and cool-headed 10 times over, from now on we must be much more so, because the dangers will be more numerous, the situations more complicated, and the enemy cunning, strong and powerful. Our responsibility will become even greater to our own people, as well as in the international arena, to the international communist movement. It is not a 134 matter of giving ourselves importance. We must preserve our Marxist modesty. Although we are small, a small party, a small people, we must perform the role and the task that belong to us honorably, courageously, valiantly, and to the end, to victory. We leaders have colossal responsibility, and we shall do our duty to the end, until victory. Because the party is with us, we have a strong party and we shall make it even stronger. Because we have an heroic people, linked to the party like flesh to bone, Marxism-Leninism is our ideology which guides us to victory. A new epoch full of even sterner battles is opening to us. We are not afraid of the struggle. The people's song says the Albanians are fighting the seven kings. For us as revolutionaries, it is a glory to fight and continue to fight till final victory. If the total victory is not achieved in our time, we must hand on the torch too. And leave the banner of Marxism-Leninism unsullied in the hands of communist and patriotic generations of our country, and it will always wave unsullied in Albania. And the name of our heroic party will be unsullied and glorious forever. Tuesday, November 3rd, 1964. The Chinese want to impose their opinions on